It's time for Twit This Week at Tech. Why am I wearing this hat? Ask Jason Snell. He's here along with Mike Elgin and Roger Chang. We're going to talk about the week's tech news, social media versus mainstream news. We'll talk about Apple's conference this week, the secret conference, and what they may be planning for the fall, and a lot more. Stay tuned. This Week in Tech is next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Audio bandwidth for This Week in Tech is provided by the new Winamp for Android, featuring wireless sync and one-click iTunes import. Now with free daily music downloads and full-length CD listening parties. Download it for free at winamp.com/Android. Video bandwidth for Twit is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com. This is Twit, This Week at Tech, episode 413, recorded July 7th, 2013. Psychic twins in a hot tub. This Week in Tech is brought to you by ProXPN. ProXPN is a virtual private network that allows you to use the internet the way it should be, anonymous and unfiltered. For 20% off your new account, go to proxpn.com/twit and use the code TWIT20. And by Carbonite. Whether you have one computer at home or several at your small business, Carbonite backs up your files for you automatically and continually for only $59.99 a year. Try it free at Carbonite.com. No credit card required. Use the offer code TWIT and you'll get 2 bonus months with purchase. And by Audible.com. Sign up for the Platinum Plan and get 2 free books. Go to audible.com/twit2 and don't forget to follow Audible on Twitter. User ID audible_com. And by ShareFile. Enhance your workflow, send files of almost any size easily and securely with ShareFile from Citrix. Try ShareFile today for a 30-day free trial. Visit sharefile.com, click the radio microphone, and enter TWIT. It's time for Twit This Week in Tech, the show where we cover the week's tech news, all in studio, all live human bodies today. I love it when that happens. Let's say hi to Mike Elgin.
Live human body might be an exaggeration in my case, but...
He's the most lively of human bodies. He's here temporarily, because I know you'll go back on the road at some point. But it's nice we've had you here in Silicon Valley for the summer.
It's been great.
Yeah.
It's been fantastic.
Wonderful. Google+, that's the place to find most of Mike's stuff. Also Computer World.
That's right. Cult of Mac, Cult of Android.
Oh, yeah, you've been doing a lot of that stuff.
Etc.
Yeah. Good to have
Many
you.
other places. Thanks.
From IDG, editorial director there and editor-in-chief of Macworld magazine, Mr. Jason Snell. PC World, too. What is your title at PC World? Editorial
director, yeah.
Okay.
Hello, humans and everyone else on planet Earth.
That's good.
It's nice that we're all here breathing
the
same
air. It is so wonderful. Right? It's amazing. Roger Chang, my old buddy from Tech TV, now at Revision 3, where he works on Techzilla and other shows.
Yes.
And is a Peanuts fan.
Yes.
That's kind of scary. That's the King of Peanuts. King of Thrones Peanuts.
No.
No? That's not the Red Wedding?
No, it's Monty Python.
Oh, Monty Python Peanuts.
The Quest for the Holy Grail.
Ah.
There are peanut statues.
Oh, because it's a scary rabbit and not
Yes.
Snoopy's a rabbit. I got it.
And then you got Woodstock chained with a coconut.
Ah! He's a laden sparrow.
Swallow.
Got it. Swallow. Got it. That's going a long way. I would have missed that one. Did you go to Nerdtacular? Is that why you're wearing it?
No, I actually got this because Busted Tees had like a 40% off. It's like, I should buy a bunch of stuff.
Deal.
So.
T-shirts are the geek outfit these days.
Did you say King of Thrones, by the way? That's like saying Dr. Spock on Star Wars.
I know. I'm so messed up.
Major geek points off for you.
Oh, I watched my first episode of Doctor Who last night, and I'm very confused.
Oh, yeah. It's okay. It's wibbly wobbly.
Oh, man. Well, now a lot of the things people have been saying, like it's bigger on the inside than the outside.
Oh, now
I get it. Yeah. Sonic screwdriver. I understand these things now.
It totally makes sense. It all totally holds together.
Yeah.
It's a good show, sort of. It's a great show. It's one of my favorites. But
is it a great show? I don't know. Is it?
I'll say this last series has been kind of
I started with
mostly miss.
I started with 2005.
Yeah, you should start
reboot.
There. It's good. It's good.
It's getting better.
It's got some iffy years. The last year was kind of weak.
I watched 2 episodes and I thought I can do without this.
It's a good show. Keep watching.
All right, I'll give it a second chance.
All right.
So, more serious note, of course, yesterday, a plane crash in San Francisco, 11:30. By 11:35, Twitter was alive. And I'm watching CNN at the same time. I was doing the radio show. nothing for 20 minutes. But boy, anything you wanted to know, you could find out. In fact, even a picture on Path by a Samsung executive. That's the picture David Un posted on his Path. And then it was really fun to watch mainstream media say that he tweeted it on Path. I mean, they just didn't understand what Path was. It did end up on Twitter, of course.
Right, it passed on. To Twitter.
There's the tweet. I just crash landed at SFO, tail ripped off. Most everyone seems fine. I'm okay. Surreal. We did learn, of course, that 2 young Chinese girls were killed in that crash, tragic crash. But amazing. 306 people did get off the plane, some with serious injuries, but they survived.
People should know that David Un is actually a huge honcho. He's like one of the top guys at Samsung, and he's been sent to America to reinvigorate the company.
What a way to arrive.
I actually thought of him when I found out that it was coming from Korea. I thought, well, I wonder if David Un is on there, because he's constantly, this guy's like back and forth all the time.
Well, and then the weirdest thing was Sheryl Sandberg posts on Facebook. She's a COO at Facebook. I and my family were going to be on that flight, and I needed the miles, or I wanted to use miles, so we went United instead.
Yeah.
She's got a lot of money. I don't know why. I'm glad she's cheap. But
Yeah.
I thought that was odd.
Yeah.
But anyway, good. So she wasn't on the flight.
I was actually scheduled to be at an event at the World Trade Center on 9/11. There was an HP event, and at the last minute they canceled it and decided to have it here on the campus. So it's like a lot of that kind of stuff going around. But yeah, she was lucky. But she wrote a lot about it.
Also amazing that somebody would get off the plane, slide down the slide, walk 100 feet away, and then turn around, take a picture, and put it on Path.
Yeah, I wouldn't have waited that long. I would have been.
You know what's great? In his picture, there's another person taking a picture.
Maybe that's the person who posted to Instagram with a filter.
Right.
My plane just crashed. I'm going to post to Instagram. Which filter
With a filter.
should I use here?
With a filter.
Black and white, maybe?
Maybe the
Nah.
old-timey sort of daguerreotype filter, maybe.
It's just amazing. Well, I'm glad that they are okay, and I'm sorry about the deaths, and certainly hope everybody gets better quickly. And there's nothing else to say about it except that it was an experience that we had on social media far more quickly than on mainstream.
I first saw a video. The first thing I saw was a video well before this picture hit, and long before CNN or any of the other mainstream media got it. It was a video taken from inside the terminal, and some people were speaking, I think it was Mandarin or something like that. But you could see it off in the distance, smoking and
it's amazing.
On fire and
Yeah,
stuff.
and there are people staying at the hotels, the airport hotels that are across the water from the runways.
Yeah,
and basically anybody who used to be an eyewitness is now an eyewitness with a camera phone. And so all of a sudden, immediately, a friend of mine was actually staying right across there, and he was tweeting within, a minute with some pictures of the plane on the runway. It's amazing.
It made me nervous. I'm on the air. I'm doing the radio show, so I'm actually talking to a fairly large audience. I noticed this is going on. I noticed that none of the news channels are covering it. And there's also this concern. It was pretty obviously happening. But there's this concern about rushing in to talk about stuff. And so here I am on mainstream media thinking, gosh, I don't know what to do at this point. Should I repeat what I'm seeing on Twitter, on social media? Should I wait till CNN confirms it?
Well, I mean, it's one of those things where, yeah, you can do it spur of the moment, but at the same time, if you want to be a journalist about it, you also need to add some context to it. I mean, look at any kind of news event within the past, 5-6 years, and when people tweet and post images, often it's without any kind of context, and people tend to draw conclusions without necessarily seeing the entire situation.
Oh yeah,
and the whole Trayvon thing. I mean, that's one of those things where people will just kind of post comments and stuff without necessarily being oh, I'm a journalism student, or I'm someone.
But does this anointing by a journalism degree somehow make you more accurate, more likely to follow? Are there rules that the unwashed masses don't know?
And that's kind of the tricky thing at this.
We're the original sources, right? We're the original materials.
But at the same time, we're at this kind of this threshold where, technology has allowed a broad group of people to effectively be the eyes, ears, and voices for a bunch of people. But at the same time, that's a broad range of differing viewpoints. If you come into a situation with, oh, you know, that's a really bad idea, that's something stupid, I'm going to tweet and take a photo saying, like, you know, that guy's being a jerk and he's hitting on this woman or whatever. You know, and someone else is, well, that woman was, you know, jacket caught on fire and the guy's hitting on her to put it out. Right. You know, you need to be able to.
There's facts and there's opinion.
Yeah, and that's what the journalist should be doing. I mean, there's always context to be explained in a situation like that. The most immediate one is, what do we know and what do we don't know? Right. For example, if one of the first things that Twitter formed a consensus around was the idea that the plane flipped around on its back,
right,
which didn't happen, which was wrong, and so a good journalist who wants to participate in this enormous stream of information should jump in there and say, okay, well, here's what we actually know.
Right.
We know that somebody has posted this picture. We know that there's reports XYZ.
I'm listening and watching. It was very interesting for me as kind of a case study of the mainstream media, and they were very reluctant to say, for instance, how many deaths or injuries there were. Unconfirmed, and this is hours into it. Mm-hmm. Whereas on Twitter, I'm seeing quotes from emergency radio, which turned out to be accurate. And I feel like probably the best way to do this is to give the people the facts and let them decide, but give them the facts in context. Mm-hmm. So what I ended up doing on the radios, and I actually said it for our affiliates down the line who are taking this live, there's a big story coming across Twitter. You should probably pay attention to this. This is what people are saying right now on Twitter. Right. The context being, this is from Twitter. Right. And I think that all of us need to learn, as we all consume social media directly, how to read this, vet it, know enough not to. And I think as we use it, we start to realize there'll be plenty of cases where Twitter's just been wrong.
Well, it makes all social media users having to build up the muscles that I think a lot of journalism students had to learn.
That's never going to happen.
You know, we're all not just reporters of what we see. We're also interpreters, like a reporter of old used to be, about who is this person and do I trust them and are they a reliable eyewitness and are they retweeting something or were they actually there? And, you know, that's there was a time when people just said, oh, regular people can't do that. That's too much work for them. Well, you know, too bad. Here we are.
They can, but they won't. They never will. Actually, the risks to media, are a best example of the risks, are a case that happened like 2 years ago or a year ago or sometime recently, where there was a local news TV show in Chicago reporting on a plane crash that landed on, I don't know, one of the major streets in Chicago, and they reported this emergency for 20 minutes before they were informed that it was a movie set.
Or a movie set.
Yeah, they were filming a plane crash. Fake. And then they started blaming the fire department, other people, the movie people, because they should have informed the journalists.
Vice versa.
And that was wrong. But by the same token, that's the fear. That's the fear. That's why CNN takes 20 minutes, because they don't want to do that.
Well, more embarrassing to get it wrong than it is to be late.
I think it goes even beyond embarrassing. I mean, CNN, you have a certain amount of reputation at stake, and if you leverage that and you're wrong, that, especially if you're a news outlet, that kind of shoots you in the foot as a business.
Yeah. Long term.
If I
just ask Shira Lazar, whose relationship was severed with was it CBS?
I think CBS.
After tweeting incorrectly that Steve Jobs had died.
Well, what they need to do is the CNNs of the world need to figure out how to leverage very quickly the camera phones and the on reporting and get those feeds coming in.
This is what I saw very quickly. This is the Path post of David Unn. This is the original post. And I looked at that and I said, that's not a fake post. First of all, it's on Path, which kind of inherently makes it a little bit more reliable because it's a small network. People don't make fake accounts on Path. The picture was clearly, somebody who'd just gotten off that plane. He was very close. So this gives it a lot of weight. When you see this,
and big props to David Unn for not saying, and this was taken with a Samsung Galaxy S4.
Although, has anybody looked at the EXIF? Because it'd be funny if it were with an iPhone.
An iPhone, right?
There's also the question of timeliness, right? We said CNN might want to harness this stuff and get it out there faster. Yeah. There is also, if you're a news organization, that question of what's the public value in getting that report out 5 minutes earlier. For something like a Supreme Court decision, maybe there's a little bit more of it. But for something like this, to say a plane is down, it's on fire, we're trying to figure out more, if you're CNN, if you're the New York Times, if you're the San Francisco Chronicle, waiting 5 minutes to get the details instead of being wrong, it's probably okay. Yeah. Relaying what people are saying on social media isn't the same as endorsing and confirming it.
As long as you qualify it and you give the source and you explain, how it might not be the full story, or it might be inaccurate, but this is what we're seeing right now. The reporting really isn't of the event; it's of what's happening on Twitter,
right?
Right,
and giving people that background information that might make it useful.
And I think part of the problem is that news, at least especially broadcast news, is now more entertainment than information, and it's, as a business, that's what they leverage.
CNN actually, to be fair, had a difficult choice. They were covering the Canadian train explosion at the time, and that is in some respects a bigger story. I mean, the whole town blew up.
Yeah.
And so I don't blame them for not jumping to this story. It's, on the other hand, I was on the radio in San Francisco at the time, so it is relevant to tell people who are in the area, don't drive down 101, because that's being blocked off now by emergency vehicles. There's stuff going on. If you see that smoke, that's what is going on.
Airport is shutting down.
Airport is shut down.
The thing that bugs me about CNN and the general coverage on TV news is that they devote the amount of time they have, not based on how much information they have, but based on how big the story is.
Yep.
So if they have no information, but if they have no information about a huge story, then they'll sit there and tap dance.
They covered Zimmerman for a week.
They should go ahead and cover the Quebec story and then jump in every 2 minutes with here's what we know now, here's what we know, and they don't do that. They're trying to get rid of it.
So I think the bottom line on this, and we'll move on, is that you should incorporate social media into your. I mean, this is how I learn about stuff now, frankly. And you just have to understand how to use it and how to develop, as you said, develop that muscle.
Right.
One more thing, though, what somebody was going to do one of these days is they're going to turn on Hangouts on Air on Google Plus, and they will instantly have a larger audience than CNN.
And even wearing glass.
Right. Well, I mean, they'll have a larger audience than CNN immediately, 10 times bigger than CNN. So it's like, what do we need CNN for? Ultimately, if you have somebody standing next to the plane broadcasting live video.
Amazing.
Somebody just didn't think of doing that. I mean, we already have it in almost everybody on that plane was capable of doing that. Nobody thought of it.
That's why CNN has iReport, and they fired a lot of reporters so that they could build up their iReport capability. But I think that's going to be a big shift in how we perceive news. And at that point, CNN's got to do what we've done, which is say, look, our job is not to bring you the stories fastest, but to bring you the analysis and the understanding of the story.
And some context, and somebody aggregating all these photos and clips and making something that makes more narrative sense for the person who's not tuned in 5 minutes, but is looking at this 3 hours later and wants the bigger picture. That's a place where you can add value.
I bet I did what most people do, which is I saw the feeds, I turned on CNN.
Yeah.
So it's a mutual thing. But you're right. If David's standing there with glass and Hangouts on Air live, that's what you're going to watch.
But you're exactly right, though. I mean, even after all the time we spent on this, watching this story since it happened, I think most of us still don't know very much about what happened.
Right.
I mean, the list of facts that we actually know, the number of deaths, few injuries, tail fell off, a couple of other facts, I think that's the extent of what we know.
I had a commercial pilot, a guy who flies jets, in studio at the time. He was the one who told me about it.
Lucky.
And because I guess he got a feed or something. And he was very reluctant to say anything.
Sure.
Rightly so.
Right.
Because there's no information.
Right.
So it's all speculation. That's one thing that the news networks have no trouble doing. It's just speculating wildly.
As long as you can make a quick headline that you can throw up.
Yeah. All right. We are talking about the week's tech news, and there is a lot of it. A Google event on Wednesday. Mike and I are invited. We can't tell you about it.
You
guys can tell us about it.
Sure.
Okay. We'll talk about a massive Android flaw that apparently lets hackers take over and control 99% of Android phones.
Even Google can't do that.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's a high percentage.
They finally ended all the malware fragmentation. Good for them.
Microsoft about to embark on a reorganization, and one of the guys who might have been key in this splits to run Zynga. What? What? And Dell apparently is looking at a watch.
Sure winner. That's gonna be a.
They just want to know what time it is.
All coming up in just a little bit on This Week in Tech. Mike Elgin, Jason Snell, Roger Chang. Glad we have you along. A nice big studio audience. Thank you all for being here. Our air conditioning has now failed, so if you want to strip down, please be my guests. Our show today brought to you in a very timely fashion by ProXPN.com. You probably know that if you are in an open Wi-Fi access spot, if you're at a hotel, if you're on a shared internet connection, that everything you do can be seen by everybody else on that network. It's not unusual in cases like that for people to try to use a VPN solution. ProXPN is OpenVPN, implemented right. We had Steve Gibson look at it. He gave it its thumbs up. But it is so much more useful than just at an open Wi-Fi hotspot. It's a great way to give you complete online privacy through a 512-bit encryption tunnel via OpenVPN. If you're using a mobile device that doesn't support OpenVPN, a lot of them don't, PPTP as well, you get to choose. If your ISP is monitoring what you're up to, and I think they are, you can protect yourself against them, the 6 strikes rule. You can keep your internet usage private at work. You can bypass internet filtering and blocked websites, bypass geographic restrictions for internet content. ProXPN has servers all over the world: Los Angeles, Dallas, Seattle, London, Singapore, Amsterdam. You can use it on Windows, Mac, iOS, and Android. Keep your stuff private. Protect yourself, especially nowadays. We now know that this is the keeping yourself private is going to require a little extra effort, a little encryption. There is a free version you can try out, but if you visit proxpn.com/twit, we've got a special deal on the Pro version. Normally, a Pro account in ProXPN is either $9.95 a month or $75 for an entire year, $74.95 for an entire year. But when you decide to buy at ProXPN, if you use our offer code TWIT20, TWIT20, you'll get 20% off, not for the first month, year, but for the lifetime of your account. This is a good time to take advantage of this. That means less than $5 a month on the yearly plan for absolute security with the best solution. OpenVPN running on ProXPN. Try it today. ProXPN.com/twit. Use the offer code TWIT20. You probably heard, this actually is a story as much as it is part of the ad, that the credit cards have started to refuse charges to pay for VPN accounts. And we asked ProXPN about that. They said nobody has contacted us from MasterCard or Visa to this point. But that is something, and I got to think that MasterCard and Visa are being prompted. I don't know whether it's by the recording industry or if it's by the NSA. But I don't think it's in any way fair to say, oh yeah, anybody's using VPN is up to no good. So I'm a little shocked by this.
I'm going to go with the NSA on that one.
I think it might be the NSA. So, we don't like encryption.
They want to be able to see into every dark corner.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Anyway, you can still use your credit card at proxpn.com/twit. Very sad to see that Doug Engelbart passed away, 88 years old. He was the guy who created pretty much modern computing at SRI. Yeah. I remember having him on Tech TV. Were you there, Roger, when we had him in?
Potentially.
Yeah.
It's been a long time, and there were a lot of shows.
It was a long time ago. He brought the original mouse, which is made out of wood. It was about that big. Remember that? And a big red button on it?
Pine. Pine with 2 metal wheels.
Amazing. Yeah. He did what do they call it? The world's most amazing demo. The
mother of all
demos.
It's really you can't believe what you're looking at when you see it even today.
And we should probably watch a little bit of it.
It looks futuristic.
Because this was in 64?
It was 68 when he did the demo. He invented the mouse in 64, 65, something like that. But the other thing that I think he doesn't get enough credit for is he invented the concept of hypertext. So every time you click on a link, click on a picture that links somewhere, the whole World Wide Web was built on the concept of the hyperlink. He came up with that concept. So that's a pretty foundational idea.
This is at Stanford. Here, I got it. Okay, Chad, if you want to control it, you can. This is under ARPA, NASA, and the Rome Air Development Center, part of the Air Force.
So there were 1,000 people in the audience, who all of which were were top men. Top men, Leo.
Top men. That's what they called them in those days.
And they were slack-jawed at this demo because he just basically laid out the whole future.
So he's using his mouse. Nobody's seen anything like this before. He's also on the left is a chording keyboard that he can.
Developing a file. This file has one statement with a few words in it. Let's make more statements. I'll say copy that statement.
It's Doug Engelbart himself doing the demo.
I wouldn't mind an interface like that now. It's like the two-handed.
Copy groups of statements.
I know. It's a
cool.
little better.
Where do I get one of those?
Behind the scenes, Bill English from SRI as well. And they're all wearing headsets, talking to each other, and talking to the home lab in Menlo Park. So he's in San Francisco doing this demo. And really a lot. Now, is he going to show? Is there windowing in this as well?
He shows a whole range of things, including the concept of networking, the concept of icons, things like that. I mean, he was looking at a whole range of things that are just the fundamental building blocks of everything we do today, and most of it was brand new to all of these people.
Anybody? There's the mouse. Now, that's actually not the one he brought. That's a later model.
Yeah. Yeah. It had been under development for 3 or 4 years by the time he demoed this.
This is at the Stanford Research Institute. A lot of people think Xerox PARC, not part of PARC.
Yep. SRI is actually the what they named Siri after, because Siri originated in SRI. So.
Wow. And of course, Smalltalk. A lot of this demo is done using Smalltalk, which at the time was also very innovative. It looks so long ago.
Yeah.
And yet so much of it was right. I mean, that's the amazing thing about it. Yeah. I met him, Mac User, I think, back in the day, gave him an award. And, he was the nicest guy. He was very friendly and grateful. And I think at that point he'd come to terms with the fact that he was never going to, his patents all expired and all of that. But he was grateful to be recognized as being somebody who was at the forefront of this stuff. I think that was his, in the end, he was very happy to have that recognition after all that time.
He never made a penny from the mouse. The patent was actually owned by a company he worked for, the SRI or somebody else, and he never made any money from that. He also, the trackball was actually invented in Canada before the mouse was invented.
Oh, interesting.
So if there are any Canadians out there,
credit,
trackball,
props.
But yeah, he was an awesome guy.
Yeah.
88 years old and really a legend. The guy who brought us a lot of what we use today.
And it's funny, we talk about Google Glass or the iWatch or other sort of weird speculative technologies. And I mean, I think this is an important lesson too, that a lot of this stuff in 1968 wasn't wrong. It was dead on, and it still took 16 years for most people to see any device that has it, and probably more like 20, 25 for it to become truly mainstream.
If you think about networking and hyperlinking, those seemed like kind of boring inside baseball-y kind of things back in 68, but look at what that all became. I mean, it just became the whole world. It became everything we do. So you don't know what's, something like Google Glass or some of these things seem like dorky things that, they are dorky things.
Right.
I want one. But they, they could become, the foundation for how everybody lives and works and stuff like that. So
filming each other, recording everyone else.
Yeah. Robert Scoble in the shower, the whole thing. This is the future we're facing.
I dropped my soap.
Dark
future.
People in showers 20 years
Doug
from now
didn't
will
see
say,
that picture and think, oh my God, what have I done? What have I done?
Need to invent a time machine quick.
Google bought a full-page ad on the 4th of July talking about a new phone from Motorola. This is the first phone really that was designed by Motorola after the acquisition by Google. They came out with phones in the past year, but they were already in the pipeline. So this will be the first real Google phone. The Moto X, we don't know anything about it. Both Mike and I have been invited to an event at Google this week. Guy Kawasaki, who's now working for Motorola. All I can say is I just got an email from them saying, here's what we're going to talk about, and you can't tell anybody. It's embargoed for a while. I probably can't even say when the embargo ends.
There are actually a lot.
You'll have to advise me on this. I'm not a journalist. I'm just some guy.
Sure you are.
That's my story, and I'm sticking with it.
Well, I mean, it's in the absence of...
By the way, Google denied after these reports came out. Google said, no, it's not about the Motorola X.
I hope not, actually. I hope it's about a wristwatch. That
would be cool.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
But there have been some leaks and reports and stuff like that, which don't sound very credible to me. They make a big deal out of the fact that it's going to be built in the U.S.
Highly customizable.
And you are designing it. You, the user, are going to design it.
Yeah, but what does that mean?
Well, it's got to be...
Engraving?
Well, first of all, it's Foxconn or Honhai or whatever.
Is building the plant.
Is building it in Texas.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's Austin. I think it's
Dallas.
Somewhere in Texas.
It's an old
Fort Worth, maybe.
Flextronic plant, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the fact that it's being like U.S. is a terrible place for a sweatshop, I mean, it's just.
But they need to build it here in order to customize it in a reasonable amount of time.
What it tells me is that it's highly robot-centric, the manufacturing. And so I think the best case scenario is they've got a way where you go through and checkbox all these features you want.
Right.
And then futuristic robots just assemble it and mail it to you.
So we've been able to customize PCs for a long time.
Right.
So is it going to be like that? How much RAM? How much storage?
I hope so. I mean,
supposedly the color of the case is
they say
engraving.
I hope it's not just engraving, though. I mean, it's supposed to have a Snapdragon 800 in it, so it'll be fast.
That's
it's supposed to have a great camera.
Snapdragon, very fast.
It's supposed to be cheap. It'll probably be very Google Now-centric.
I hear some reports saying mid-range, which means not like Galaxy S4, HTC One, iPhone.
Do you know what the radios are?
No, we don't know anything about it.
So I'm wondering if they...
And if we did, we couldn't tell you.
So NVIDIA showed off when they were doing their little demo, they were talking about their next GPU and the
Tegra 4, would it be?
The Tegra 4 chip. But before that, they were talking about their new radio that was essentially a CPU that was reprogrammable.
Soft, yeah.
So it was a soft modem that you could essentially tweak for whatever.
Well, there you go.
So
then maybe the firmware says, okay, where are you? Okay, we're going to customize it for that. What carrier are you going to use?
Well, if they really wanted to be revolutionary, because this is the thing that makes me think it's not about engraving and bright colors. We've heard some early Motorola people saying this is going to be life-changing for a lot of people.
Scoble said it was going to be life-changing.
Yeah, so I'm thinking, Scoble says a lot of things.
His life has changed daily.
Yes, he's really into changing lives. But I think to me the darkest horse, the long shot here, is that they would build in mesh networking. So this Project Loon thing with the balloons. Yeah. This is mesh networking where they relay, where each Wi-Fi net node is also relaying it in both directions. Right. So imagine if a cell phone could be a Wi-Fi hotspot or a connectivity option. It's very unlikely. Yeah. Don't quote me on this.
Because of the privacy issues alone, I think you're going to have trouble with that.
I'm just thinking the battery life.
Battery life.
You're sucking down my juice.
There's no way this would be the only radio.
Wait. Right now, Wi-Fi is not one of the big battery hogs on smartphones.
Yeah, but if you're sending out someone else's packets back and forth,
well, you're always on.
Well, it would be a third radio option after Wi-Fi and mobile broadband. So this would.
What would be the advantage? So I have a connection and I can share it with everybody in here?
Exactly. What you do is you extend whatever the boundaries are of your connection, and whatever that connection is, you extend those boundaries. Right. And so, maybe you're inside of a parking garage, and you're having trouble getting, some kind of signal. It would extend that. If you're
effectively, you'd blanket everywhere.
Exactly.
With signal.
And this would be especially awesome in like remote areas. So imagine ballooning data to some remote village somewhere, and then within the village, imagine if it continues.
Well, that's why Loon makes a lot of sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But again, that's pure speculation. But I've always wondered why somebody didn't do something like that, because it's a fantastic.
Meraki
technology.
was going to do that. Remember the Meraki routers? They were originally, and then they got acquired by Cisco, I think. And then they became more commercial. But they were originally designed to do exactly that. I've got a Wi-Fi access spot. I make an open spot within a neighborhood. I create a mesh. It's going to happen. It's going to. I feel like it's going to happen.
In the meantime, I'm really mad at them because I was all set to buy a phone, and now I can't buy a phone.
I know, you have to wait. You have to wait.
What are you going to do?
I just wonder if you guys have any thoughts about Google. Always has seemed to have this. They keep trying to get around the carriers. They keep trying to break people of subsidies. You've seen so many Nexus phones that are sold unlocked without subsidies. Hasn't really taken off. They're more political statements, I think, than products in many ways. I'm wondering now that Google is rolling out, it seems like the Google products from Motorola and not what was in the pipeline. Are they going to try to do some other end runs around carriers? Or are they going to play ball?
That's what mesh networking would do. That's one example of what they could do.
I wouldn't have to buy cell 3G access or 4G access if I could get it from my friends.
Well, another alternative to that is, like, for example, in a lot of areas, AT&T is far better than the coverage is far better than T-Mobile, but T-Mobile might have a better.
Oh, so it would be cross-carrier even.
Well, no, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is maybe T-Mobile would be more awesome if there were mesh networks everywhere you went in Petaluma.
It would be in their interest to do that, yeah. The weirdest one was that you could email, when you order it online, you email a wallpaper and it comes with your wallpaper installed.
Who cares
I don't think that's a big
that
advantage.
I'm thinking about the societal implications of that, because then you're dependent.
Wallpaper?
Yeah, just doing the mesh. Because
the mesh, yeah.
You're dependent on other people and you're not getting good performance. You got to make nice.
I got to make friends. I got to get meshed. Hey, you want to mesh? Let's mesh, you and me.
Mesh buddies.
Instead of
be in the mesh pit.
You want to get coffee? Just go mesh.
Everybody wants Google. This is a classic historically. Everybody wants Google to break these markets. We wanted Google to buy the 700 megahertz spectrum so they could break the cell industry.
Yeah.
We wanted gigabit internet access to transform internet access. And Google, I think, is smart enough to move slowly. I agree. I think that's kind of their goal. But I think they also realize, hey, we live in the real world. We got to be political about this. So we'll move a little bit slowly. But I think
they make their money from they'll say this flat out: if the more you use the internet, the more money we make. And so
that's all they care about.
They're stuck with these dinosaurs. I mean, AT&T and all these companies just suck. They're horrible drains and brakes on the progress that Google's trying to make. So I think you're right, exactly, Roger. I think that one way or another, they're going to figure out how to make an end run around these carriers. They have to.
It's not a directly related comment, but in light of the NSA and PRISM, all that, I mean, do you want Google to be the one?
I trust them more than I trust.
I tweeted on the 4th of July. I said, in fact, I've still got it on my website. The Internet Defense Fund was trying to get people aware of, the NSA thing, and they were saying, let's raise money. And I was surprised. By far, the most responses I got is, why would you want to do that? InternetDefenseLeague.org, by the way. Why would you want to do that? This is, you'll change your tune when a church is blown up or a building is blown up by terrorists. I think the majority of Americans support the NSA spying. It's the geeks who watch this show, and I'm in a bubble, who go, what the heck? Everybody else is going right on.
It's one of those things. If
you're keeping us safe, that's what they're saying.
Until something happens where that program's used directly at an individual, that person or a group of people, for them it doesn't affect them. So it's like, why not? And so
I think people think if you're not doing anything wrong, what do you got to worry about?
And I think that's a result of a failure of our educational system.
I agree.
Because we don't understand the reason for the Fourth Amendment. Right. That's the problem, fundamentally. And the other thing that we should be grappling with is, how do we transition from a physical age to a digital age, and what carries over and what doesn't.
That's the big problem right now.
Exactly. The government says nothing carries over.
Your mail is better protected than your phone call.
Well, we just learned they're scanning that too. They're scanning metadata of the actual envelopes and stuff like that. So sorry.
So they're not reading the inside.
Well, no, they don't have to. They don't have to.
They just track where the mail goes.
But I mean, every organization that wants something politically will wait till something bad happens and they say, "Aha! Now we have to have this thing that I've been calling for all along."
I think it's not just education. I think it's just society's, answer to conflict is essentially to kind of hole up in these, for the lack of a better analogy, they're essentially, gangs where you have groups of people with their set of ideologies, their set of beliefs, and if you don't, if you don't jive with that particular set, then you're the enemy, and then we'll do anything to hurt you, even if it hurts ourselves, cut your nose to spite your face. And I think we're at that point where you just turn on any news program, you get a bunch of incredibly juvenile and sophomoric debates going on.
That's why I don't do it.
Yeah, because that's what people are trained to do. That's kids watching on TV. Also, that's how adults talk to each other. They talk like 5-year-olds. You're an idiot. Your plan's stupid. It's going to kill the world. It's one of those things where it's great for ratings, but in the end, it just kind of debases the entire conversation.
There's also a generational divide. I mean, when you talk about understanding this technology and what it means, we have a lot of judges who don't understand it. Most of Congress doesn't understand it, and a lot of people don't understand it. And maybe I'm being optimistic here. Maybe I'm not. I'm not sure. Help me out here. I keep thinking that down the road, somebody's going to realize that searching through all your files on your laptop or reading your email is no different from breaking into your house without a warrant and searching through your stuff, which we would never allow and is clearly unconstitutional. The problem is that the people who want to do that can get away with it now because everybody else doesn't really understand what's going on because they're not thinking of it. It's too abstract for them.
I tell you, if I ran the NSA, I would want everything handed to me on a silver platter.
Absolutely.
I would say, yeah.
Courts are inconvenient.
Even my budget is classified. I can spend gazillions of dollars building these huge data centers and record every phone call build a time machine and go back in time and record all those phone calls too. What the heck? I would want that. And I'm a good person. I trust myself.
That's exactly the conversation I had with somebody who's a law enforcement official on Twitter. Back and forth. His first tweet was to me was, NSA mines data to protect you and you protest. Google mines data to sell ads and you're okay with it?
Yes.
And I said, yes. I said, wait a minute. We went back and forth a little bit, and he finally said, well, I guess it's because I'm a peace officer, but I think it's more important to have, I guess because I work in public safety, I don't share your tinfoil conspiracy view of government. You can't have 100% safety and privacy.
But a policeman, if allowed to make the decisions entirely without considering other considerations, would get rid of Miranda. They would get rid of they would
it just
embrace
gets in their way.
And they're the
racial
ones who
profiling.
said that Miranda would destroy all law enforcement, which didn't happen.
And I understand. And I understand that point of view. If your goal is to, I want to stop crime, these things slow me down.
They use terror and they use secrecy as a way to avoid the whole debate about trade-offs. I mean, they're actually damaging Silicon Valley with this NSA thing. I mean, what gave them the right to say that, you know, the war on terror and making it more convenient and more giving us more abilities in fighting terrorism is worth sacrificing the credibility of Silicon Valley? I mean, Europe is outraged that if you know, Americans are like, oh, we're protected by the Constitution, not supposed to be spying on Americans. Europeans are like, wait a minute, we all use Facebook too. Like, so you're not even arguing about whether it's okay to spy on us.
You know, what really bugs me is the false analogy with social networking sharing and spying, where people say, and this is a version of your give and take, Leo, with that public safety officer, is, oh, well, people are so worried about the government looking at their stuff, but they share their photos on Twitter and Facebook. It's like, we choose to share some things, other things we choose not to. They're not related at all, and yet that's a legitimate argument that people are trying to make.
I think, you know, it's not understanding one is something that someone can opt in or not, you know, opt out of. Like, I don't have to use Facebook. I don't have to use Google or any of their services. I'm kind of stuck.
That's kind of what I said to him, is you don't have to use Google. He said, no, there's no opt-out for Google.
That were, you know, enacted, you know, whether or not I agree.
The opt-out is don't visit it. You know, use a DuckDuckGo or whatever.
And where's my opt-out for the NSA?
There is no, definitely. So, but my point is that we are preaching to the choir. I think everybody listens to the show. I think all of us agree. I think everybody in the studio audience understands, at least. There may be people who say, well, I'm willing to give up some privacy because we need security. But I think the general public, to answer to this, and this is going back to what you were talking about, Roger, they don't care. And I think they feel like, hey, it makes us safe. I'm terrified. I'm really worried about another 9/11, and this is worth it.
I just feel it's those two things. It's that combination of, it's fear, but it's also not understanding the technology. And that's a powerful combination, because fear is always going to be an issue where people are afraid of the next attack.
So we do what we can.
They also don't understand the technology.
We should then need to do what we can to explain the technology.
Right, but you're right.
That's what our mission is.
We are kind of in a bubble.
That doesn't explain the consequences. I mean, like when you know, taxes go up and the price of gasoline goes up, people, you know, it affects their wallet directly. When you know their schools shut down, their kids have to get bused off to another district, that affects them. But if it's something very abstract, what you were touching on is that, you know, it takes a while until something hits them directly, until they appreciate.
Right. Until you're Martin Luther King and J. Edgar Hoover's been collecting a dossier on you.
Which is why it might take some time for more people to become technically savvy enough to say, hey, wait a second. Or there'll be a big news story. I mean, the fact that the U.S. government stops a lot of people at the borders, American citizens coming into the country, and says, we're going to look at every file on your hard drive, and if you don't decrypt with your passwords, we can hold you or not allow you back in the country. I mean, I think that's outrageous, but it's just not registering yet.
Right.
Maybe it will.
That's right. That's why I think Google and to a certain extent Facebook, the models that they have in terms of showing you what they know about you is a good one. So, for example, if you use Google Attitude, you can go there and say, show me what you know about where I've been. And it shows a map where you've been. And it's, you know, if you feel creeped out by that, you can take action, turn stuff off and do things. Same thing with Facebook. It tells you what apps you're connected with and what those are doing, and you can just sort of opt out of those in the spot. We need something like that. I mean, I think it's never going to happen. But that would be a good first step, to know what it is that they know. Because right now it's who knows. The other thing is everybody's talking about, you know, Apple made a big deal about the fact that they can't, or they claim that they can't decrypt their own messaging.
That's an interesting story.
And and everybody said, yeah, the NSA can't decrypt that. And my first thought is, really? You know that? How do you know that? This is an agency that exists to decrypt things secretly in ways that nobody knows.
Yeah, they have supercomputers. Even if they wanted to, they could.
And there's reasons to doubt what Apple said in general.
Well,
whether Apple was being completely honest.
Exactly, but nobody can. Nobody that I've heard can rightly claim that they know what the NSA is capable of.
Then, and I think that kind of brings to light of the whole, just kind of focuses the entire discussion on we don't know. The problem is everything's in secret. There's secret courts, there's secret laws.
Right. And if you should be one of those people that helps people understand or know about it, you might just be running to Ecuador right about now, or where is he going? Bolivia. Venezuela. Yeah.
Everyone wants to get,
because he doesn't want to live in a surveillance society, so he's going to.
Isn't that ironic? The choices he had open to him were
It's because he didn't think it through.
No.
It seems to me he could have planned this better.
He had.
We're talking about Edward Snowden, obviously.
Yes, he had a full house, and he just blew it, straight up without necessarily making.
I don't know, and I'm really trying to figure this out because this was not a dumb guy. He had people come visit him, take their cell phones, put them in the fridge, which is very clever.
Yeah.
Because the metal in the fridge was keeping the cell phone from broadcasting.
He might be smart, but he might be incredibly naive.
Or he felt, well, for instance, he could have been deep throat and done this completely anonymously. I think he decided that it was better that he not do this anonymously so he could be vetted, right?
Yeah.
That, okay, this guy maybe does know what he's saying. So he had to put himself on the line a little bit. He chose to do it in Hong Kong.
It's just very. Every action.
Are you saying he should have had a way out?
He should have thought it from. The problem is everything he's done up since he's disclosed the whole PRISM thing is that it just makes him look shadier and shadier, right? Putin doesn't want him. They're trying to kick him out as quickly as possible off Russian soil.
And you're too shady for Putin.
Yeah, well, that's
shady. That is shady.
I mean, you know what I mean? It's just suddenly you have this kind of shroud of people just questioning, well, what is his motive?
Yeah, but there was going to be character assassination against this guy regardless, right? I mean, the first thing was going to be, no matter who it was, they were going to find.
But he's not.
Do you think he underestimated how vigorously the U.S. government would go after him?
How can you not? There's one guy in prison already.
Yeah.
I mean, it's you, and that's the thing is like he either was incredibly naive, didn't think things through, or had something set up and that fell through, and he was kind of.
You know what you do, and somebody in the chat room said this. You do it in the United States. You let yourself be arrested. You say, you know what? I'm a whistleblower.
Yeah.
And this is something people needed to know, and you take your licks.
I don't know, man.
Look at Bradley
still
Manning. It's hard to say that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it doesn't. I'm really glad that he did what he did, and I don't think we know what his motives are, whether he's a good guy, bad guy, whatever, and I don't think it really matters. He did what he did, and now we're having these conversations, and now it's all kind of, it's not out in the open, but at least we're trying to find out what's going on. So that's a good thing. But I think that I wouldn't want to be him. Venezuela is very nice.
Well, I'll be honest, I'm grateful to him.
Yeah, absolutely. But who knows? I mean, I think he'll have a Wikipedia page. We'll kind of all forget about him, and we'll never forget about this whole NSA thing.
It needed to be said, and I think that I think he is a whistleblower in the best sense of the word. And it's funny because it's been going on for a month, and it's every week. What's what we talk about, and it really has, I think, rattled a lot of us in the tech community more than we care to admit.
Because we understand the power of big data.
We understand it. Yeah.
Big data is. It's the big trend right now. We have the processing power and the bandwidth to do phenomenal things and to find out amazing amounts of stuff. And there is no big data than all communication, like storing it and saving it for later, so that and then harvesting the metadata. Just to be very, very clear, in case people don't understand what's happening, they harvest metadata of everybody, everything you do, every email, every text, every phone call, everything. They want who you're calling, how long the call lasts, all this metadata, and they're hunting for suspicious activity. When they find it, they go back to their recording of your actual phone call. They get a warrant, and then they bust you. I mean, this is like an Orwellian nightmare.
It's Orwellian.
The fact that they can, it's the equivalent of preemptive body cavity and home searches of everybody every day in case they find anything.
Wasn't that one of the main plot points of Minority Report?
Exactly.
You arrest someone who didn't commit a crime, but they will.
And that's what this is for. That's what anti-terrorism is. It's pre-crime. They're trying to stop crimes, terrorist attacks before they happen. And if you don't have like psychic twins floating around in a hot tub. You need something. So
this is better than psychic twins.
Way better. It's more expensive though.
And then you have a nice wooden ball that's
hey, those twins have got to
names.
eat.
Yeah,
but well, when Obama says we're not listening to your phone calls, or David Simon writes his blog post, a very smart guy saying, who did The Wire, saying, well, they're not listening to the calls, and we got all that information. The calls, the metadata tells you so much that that in some ways you don't need to listen to the call, and if you've got the call recorded, you can always.
If you remember Zero Dark 30, they identified this guy as an Obama. Excuse me. I hate that error, and I've never made it before, and I've always been proud of myself for not making it. So they identify him as a courier for Osama bin Laden because he called his mother from different locations. Yeah. That's all it took for them to really suspect this person. I mean, that's pretty flimsy metadata. And they figured it out, without computers.
It's literally a map of the. If you assume that most people are using cell phones now, which is true, it's literally a map of every personal relationship that everybody has with everybody else. Right. All of them. Yeah. If you use a telephone at all. Right.
And you can make the linkages from A to B to C to D in a 6 degrees of separation.
And one of those supercomputers. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
But we're safe.
I want one.
Whew. Are we?
Well, you can't prove otherwise.
Right.
That's the thing. Safety, look at all these attacks that didn't happen. It's not proof of anything.
Is safety the goal? The whole purpose of the Al Qaeda is to get rid of our freedoms. They've succeeded.
That's what I've been saying. The terrorists won. Yeah. This is a clear victory. It's very sad. We're going to take a break. We'll talk a little bit about a big event Apple held this week. I don't know if you know more about the Tim Cook talk at Fort Mason. I think there's people in the audience who might have been there. I don't know. Watch them carefully. Maybe we can collect some metadata.
That'd be great.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Meanwhile, I had the worst call on the radio show. Oh, my gosh. I almost... she burst into tears yesterday. She said, my dad passed away, and I had been sitting at his bedside writing down everything that he said for a couple of years, and Microsoft Works lost it. I said, oh, yeah. Microsoft Works? Yeah, it works. I inadvertently saved a blank document on top of it. And I said, did you back up? She said, what? No. And I just really, every time I get a call like that, it just hits me how important backing up your data is. And so many people don't do it because it's hard. Sometimes you do it. I asked my dad, do you back up? And he said, yeah, every once in a while I'll take a USB key and I stick it in there and copy some files over. So how often do you do that? He said, well, whenever I think of it. And I can guarantee you, whenever you think of it is right after you lose all your data. So what you need is a backup solution, and what I've got for you is really the right way to do it. It's automatic, so you don't have to remember it. It's continuous. Whenever you're on the internet, it's backing up. It is, by the way, and I want to emphasize this, if you want, it is trust no one. So Carbonite does allow you to generate public keys, private keys, and encrypt your data so that no one, not even Carbonite, has that key. Now, you lose some capabilities, as you would have to if you do something like this, and I just want to emphasize that. One of the things Carbonite does let you do is look at your cloud data from any computer. You can log onto your Carbonite account, get individual files, email those files to somebody else. They have apps for the smartphone and the tablet and the Android. That won't work if you use the TNO encryption, so I think a lot of people don't. It's up to you, and that's the point. Carbonite is safe, secure backup. Always uses SSL, so even if you're at an open access spot, the backup is completely secure. And best prices. It starts at $59.99 a year. That is less than $5 a month for everything on your hard drive. If you're a business, there could be no more important thing to do than back up your data. Imagine a fire in your place of business. You lose your data. You lose the backup sitting next to the computer. Now, do you have your accounts receivable? Do you have your client list? Do you have your supplier list? Can you get back in business? How long is that going to take? You got to back up to get it back. So do it right with Carbonite. Flat rate plans for home, for office, for business, for Mac and Windows, and it starts at $59.99 a year. I want you to try it free for 2 weeks. Use our offer code TWIT, and you'll get 2 weeks without a credit card. Just try it. Yeah, if you decide to buy, and only at that time will you use the credit card, and then you'll get 2 bonus months with purchase. 14 months for the price of 12. You got to back it up to get it back. Please, I don't want to get a crying phone call. It was heart-wrenching from anybody saying, I lost my data. Because, I got to give her the bad news. It's gone, it's gone. And then I really don't want to spank her and say, and you should have backed it up. I don't. But I'm thinking, God, why didn't you have a backup? This is so valuable to you. I got a call once from a guy who lost his phone. He said, my dog died 3 years ago. And the only pictures I have of that dog were on that phone, and I lost the phone. I can't help you. Too late. Back it up. That's the only way.
You have to embrace the power of negative thinking.
Yeah, you have to plan for disaster.
What horrible thing could happen?
See, I don't have a problem with that because I always think of the worst.
Yeah, I'm a very negative person.
Yeah.
It's very helpful.
I have what my ex-wife was a psychotherapist, said you have disaster mentality. I said, yes. I always think of, the tire's going to blow. Yep. What am I? As I'm driving down the highway, I go, okay, now when I have the blowout, I'm going to lean into the skid. And I'm thinking this, if that guy leans, do you do that, Roger? You seem like a kind of glum Gus.
Yeah, you seem really
but I mean,
Debbie Downer.
It's more like, if I'm going to go, make sure everything is taken care of. And
oh, that's interesting. So have you given your passwords and your social?
No, I don't want anyone accessing anything.
Google now has this thing.
I actually have Patrick Norton. I'm authorizing.
You trust Patrick?
I'm authorizing him to demolish my PC if my time
with
is
a sledgehammer.
Something.
You know what? Can I sign him up for that too?
Sure.
I would trust him and his sledgehammer. That is a guy you can count on. He'd come in, he'd destroy the whole thing, and he'd love doing it every minute of it.
Great business.
He would be crying, but he would be.
He would be calling you crying.
Roger, but tears on a sledgehammer. Yeah, that'd be beautiful.
It's like John Goodman in The Big Lebowski. Oh. Smashing that car, but not saying this thing that he said because that was mean.
Well, if somebody steals your laptop, you want to be able to just remotely wipe it.
Google has this thing now. This what is this? A dead man switch, right? They don't call it that.
Oh man,
you have to check in every.
Yeah.
But if
they don't hear from you in a while,
they close all your accounts.
Well, you can tell them what. So I have one that sends a message to everybody in my contacts list saying, "I'm dead now, but you should know I'm Batman."
Yeah, that's right.
Look for a guy jumping around.
That's how they know it's really from you.
Yeah. That's the key.
Only you would say that.
But no, you should probably have that with here's where my LastPass account is, and here's the LastPass password or what. I give half of it to one person, half to the other. Say you should call Joe because Patrick, call Roger because Roger's got the other half. And if Roger's dead, I'm dead. Maybe we die together. That would be bad. So we can't fly together.
Could be romantic though.
We could be on a mesh network together.
Even in the afterlife.
So I like that.
But what if they become your nemesis and then use their powers for evil while you're still alive?
He's only got half.
Well, see, then...
But what if they join up and they're co-nemesis?
That essentially sets you up for 3 summer blockbusters afterwards.
Anyway, this is increasingly going to be an issue, is what happens to all your media, your stuff, all of that stuff. I don't know why I brought that up. It's depressing. But disaster mentality, because I'm always thinking the worst is gonna happen.
This is the most depressing episode of the
I'm going to cheer you up right now. Tim Cook says we're going to sell more iPhones. Yay. He brought in from all over the world Apple's retail store leaders from across the globe for a secret summit at Fort Mason Center in San Francisco. Of course, immediately everything he said leaked right out. He spoke for 3 hours. During this time, according this is from a 9 to 5 Mac. According to 9 to 5 Mac, he expressed satisfaction with the way Macs and iPads have been selling. In fact, so much so they said, let's put those on the back burner. You don't have to push those anymore. What I'm not happy about is that 80% of all iPhones are purchased from someone else, AT&T or
See, and this scares
Rogers.
me because they're a premium brand. They're the premium brand. They have such a great reputation. And if the rumors are true of these plastic, fruity-colored iPhones, then this is, to me, this would be solid evidence that Apple is slouching toward becoming a conventional company, because that's conventional company thinking. Apple never used to think like that. Oh my gosh,
let's make
all the
best
zero
product.
Exactly, and the idea that they're going to go chasing these low margin,
I don't buy
markets.
these. For one thing, you can get an iPhone for free right now. You get a 4S for free, right? What do you need to make a cheap iPhone for?
Exactly.
Or maybe, well, there are plenty of countries, not the U.S., where the subsidies don't exist. You have to lay out cash. But isn't it possible that Apple could have a $99? Well, maybe not. Maybe they have to make a plastic $99 phone.
I mean, they really are apparently concerned about China, India, and other emerging markets. When I was in Kenya,
that's where all the
months
growth
ago,
is.
everybody had a every smartphone user had a Samsung or Huawei.
Right.
And so everybody's concerned about the Huaweis and the emerging Chinese.
Well, and that is the future. We've saturated, and I think this is part of the thing that Cook said, we've saturated the U.S. market. So the smartphone market here is not growing anywhere near as fast as it did. It's kind of, plateaued.
Right.
So it's going to be the developing world where we're going to sell these. If we're going to grow, isn't the stock market saying to them, you got to grow?
The problem is that the Apple sphere is so inward looking, and Apple has so few products that if Apple becomes known for a cheap phone, that's going to seriously dilute the brand. That's really what Apple has. They have this amazing reputation, this brand, the Apple stores, the whole image thing.
It's aspirational.
I think that's a long way to go to say that Apple's going to do a cheap phone and therefore it's going to destroy its entire brand because it's got this reputation. I mean, first off, I can't remember the last time Apple did release a product that was lousy and cheap. The 3 and the 3G and the 3GS both had polycarbonate backs too, and they, people didn't get the pitchforks and the torches out and go to the Apple stores. I think maybe their goal here is to come up with something that feels new and doesn't feel like it's 2 years old, because that's a problem.
I'm
with
concerned about the
selling
overall
iPhone 4.
trend because the leaked images, which are of dubious validity. From both Apple and also the Moto X phone, they're both similar. They're fruity colors and rounded backs and kind of plasticky looking. I hope this isn't the trend, because phones are starting to get really cool. You look at the HTC One, you look at the iPhone 5.
They're more pro.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I really...
and the iMac, all those fruity colors on the iMac, that was a terrible failure.
Actually,
but
it was on the MacBook, the original toilet seat MacBook.
Yeah. But the iMac did incredibly well.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. This is a weird. I will agree with you. This is kind of a weird story for Apple. Although selling 2-year-old models for $0 with the subsidy is also weird.
Yeah.
And Apple's doing that today. And I think you're absolutely right that the problem in the U.S. we don't see it because it's below the waterline of the subsidy. But the problem is everywhere else in the world, Apple does need to make a phone if they want to reach that is cheaper.
I'm not concerned about the plasticky, and I have nothing against bright colors. But the strategy of chasing the low margin phones is not an Apple strategy that we've seen. They it's like, why do they want market share? But why do they want market share? Market share is not.
I agree with you. The question is this truly a low margin phone, or is it? I mean, this may actually be a phone that has higher margins than selling the 4. That's for zero subsidized, because they may re-engineer it to be a little bit cheaper, and if it doesn't come across as being a cheap product, then that might actually not hurt Apple's margins.
Didn't they do that with the iPod, though? They started with an expensive premium product, and then they created iPods that were $99 that were affordable in colors. There's an analogy there, and the cheap iPods were not, well, except for the one that was like chewing gum.
The Shuffle.
I swallowed one of those. It was terrible.
But in every other respect, they weren't like crap, were they?
No,
they were quality products.
No, but they were never the low price leader, and Apple never should be the low price leader.
And by the way,
but they might want to get a lower price.
They killed the market for MP3 players. That's it. It's over.
Yeah.
Apple owns it.
But they came out with the cheaper ones after the iPod was no longer the flagship product. iPhone is the flagship product. It's where the vast majority of their profits come from. It's where the vast majority of Samsung's profits come. 80% of Samsung's profits. And
that's not true, though. I mean, the iPad Mini and the iPad Nano came out when the iPad was still growing. The iPod Mini and iPod Nano came out while the iPod was still a growing part of Apple's business. It wasn't a tailing off part of Apple's business.
It was
when they
long
came out with
before
those
it
cheaper
started
products,
to die.
and they helped make that growth increase.
Yeah, I'm worried about Apple becoming conventional, and they literally haven't shipped anything interesting since Steve Jobs died.
So
and it's like they need to do that.
I agree, and I don't think even the Mac Pro is anything to write home about, but I think you and I disagree on that one.
Buy me one and I'll let you know.
Yeah, okay. I'm buying one for myself, but it's going to be a great home theater PC. I'm going to put it right in the living room. Another element of the iPhone sales push, according to 9to5 Mac, Cook reportedly hinted, is the upcoming launch of an iPhone trade-in program. I think this is smart for Apple stores. I think there are a lot of people out there with iPhone 4s, 4Ss who might want to say, hey, I can get something for it if I bring it to the Apple store. And it also brings them to the Apple store where they'll buy.
Right.
One of the things he doesn't like is that 80% of iPhones are bought outside the Apple store, but 50% of returns and fixes come to the Apple store. He's not happy about that one.
Well, and he sees the third party, whether it's something like eBay or it's a website that offers you to buy back your iPhone.
Right.
That's an opportunity for Apple to. I wasn't going to say are they sponsored this week or not, but yeah, it's
They're
that
sponsored, but but that's right. They've got to look at Gazelle and say why don't we do that?
Because then we can convert them immediately into another iPhone.
Yeah, exactly.
Why wouldn't
get them in the store and give them another iPhone.
They got all those stores.
And that's another issue. I don't want to go down another rat hole, but there's an environmental component here with everybody chasing low ends and having people who are barely spending anything have an entirely brand new phone instead of a refurbished phone. That's terrible for the environment. It's terrible.
I agree.
These phones should last 12 years, and we need some system to have them remain in use.
Maybe that's the plan.
Because the only environmentally friendly phone is the one you never manufacture.
Notice that the iPhone 5 is much more repairable, right? You can, or is it not? Don't they have like a special machine?
Parts of it are, parts of it aren't. But if Apple's taking back old iPhones, it does make you wonder if they're going to use that. Probably not put them in a landfill, but use them in some way, and maybe that's a way to
better
get
way to do low
a cheaper
cost
product.
In addition, this is all from the 9 to 5 Mac story about the event. In addition to talking about iPhone hardware, Cook mentioned how critical iOS is to Apple's future. They demonstrated iOS to the Apple retail store leaders.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just looking to see if I'm getting any eye contact from those guys. Coupled with the new iPhone and iOS sales strategies, Apple will focus on opening up a few new major stores in Europe, including a new store in Italy. Rumored to be working on a low cost. They didn't talk about that. Store leaders, according to the people briefed on the talks, reportedly left the summit feeling confident about Apple's fall product line. Expect, and here's the interesting quote, an army of new products this fall. That's the weakest rumor ever, right?
Yeah.
An army.
What, Apple will have new products in the fall?
Could be an army
I don't
of
believe
one.
it. It's not going to happen. No.
Shocker.
Apple did it though last year. Remember, they had like a crazy event where they announced like everything. Yeah. The whole line is new. They could do that again. That was when October or September they did that last year.
The thing is that they're judged on their performance relative to the same quarter the previous year, so they have to knock something out of the park for the holidays, or they're toast on Wall Street.
Just going to do product category or just revamps of everything they already have?
iWatch,
something.
iTV.
I think the watch is a strong possibility for this year.
Well, they had one with the Nano at one point.
That's right.
It was a really bad watch, though.
But people
accidental. Bad watch.
Yes.
So Dell's going to do a watch.
It'll be as successful as all their other phones.
It'll be gray.
I had
Dell. It's
413
if you want to know.
It was sort of cool.
What time is it?
Dell should just get out its phone and look there and see what time it is.
Yeah. What phone?
I don't know. It's probably
they had a phone.
I think the largest story with the watch is the number of companies that are announced, or shipping, or rumored.
That shows how strong Apple is.
There was an article on this that gave the list of everything that everybody who's doing a watch, and then there was the list of the major companies that are not. And the list of the companies that were not was like 4 companies. It was like Nokia, a couple of other companies. Every other major technology company is working on it,
including Dell.
Because it's a new product category that no one has their big toe in. I mean, this is one of the things that I've noticed, especially with large electronic conglomerates, is that they saturate each of those product categories to the point where they have the low, middle to end, but they have such thin margins. They need people to keep buying stuff, and you know, it was very telling that when you go to when I was at the LG and the was it not Panasonic? One of the other it was a Japanese electronics manufacturer. One of the things they were touting were a lot of home appliances, smart LG, smart refrigerators.
Yeah, you know why? Nobody's buying HD TVs. They saturated the market. It's done.
I think the competitive dynamic that's happening here is that the major companies are using the watch as a lock-in product. So when you get the Apple iWatch, that's going to be like work only with the iPhone. It's going to make you need an iPhone. You're going to love it because it's going to be really fashionable. Google's probably going to do something similar. Samsung is going to do something similar. LG is going to do that too. They're going to try to use the watch to lock you into the rest of their products.
Well, don't name it an iWatch because Apple has now filed for the trademark name iWatch in Russia, Japan, Mexico, the U.S.
They'll never get it in China.
Is there an iWatch?
There are actually multiple companies in China that have the iWatch brand, and the Chinese government and courts are out to get Apple.
Yeah,
because they have encrypted messaging. And
I normally don't pay attention to trademark filings. I mean, patent filings from Apple because they have a building full of lawyers, and of course they're going to file. But filing for the trademark of iWatch.
Well, I mean, why not do it? Even if I don't think it's a confirmation of it, but why not do it? I do wonder when you talk about everybody doing a watch, if some aspect of that is this paranoia about Apple getting the jump on them. Like there are all these rumors that Apple's working on a watch and what's it going to be, and that happened with tablets, and everybody had those slates at CES that didn't actually ever come out because the iPad came out and they're like, oh crap, we can't do that. Right? And I wonder. And the game is a little different now, and I know Samsung is looking at this aggressively, and a bunch of other manufacturers are, but I've got to think that part of it is that they don't want to get caught flat-footed by whatever Apple does this time. Now, we'll see if Apple does what we all expect them to do, or does, kind of surprises everybody.
I wonder how much of this is that, the CEO is at some event and says, oh, yeah, we're doing a watch, and then runs back to his phone and calls back to headquarters saying, we've got to get going on a watch.
I don't think that's an unreasonable guess at all. I think there's a lot of that.
All I know is that I want one. And it's like, I'm dying.
You're going to want one even more when you hear this. Apple just hired the former CEO of Yves Saint Laurent.
You said it like that, didn't you?
Yves Saint Laurent.
Yves Saint Laurent, yeah.
Fashion giant Yves Saint Laurent.
He's a part of the accessory market. And
he's a fashion executive. He'll be running special products.
Everybody's talking about this guy as if he's like from the fashion runways of Europe and stuff.
Right.
He started out as a bean counter at Exxon.
Yeah,
he's a business guy and he's a tech guy.
Come on, you're ruining the story.
He went to Stanford.
Much less fun that way.
Oh, stupid facts.
But his specialty is exactly what Apple wants. His specialty is to take something that's highfalutin, designy kind of a thing and make it a mass market product. That's what Apple does. And that's what he did at some of these fashion companies that he's worked at.
Apple's had a really hard time finding outside executives to bring into the company. We've seen it time and again that a lot of times Apple's just such a different company, and there are these cultural mismatches. And I look at this and exactly what you said about him. It's interesting, like this might be a good fit. I guess we'll all find out.
Look at him. He's a fashion guy.
You sort of see it though, right? That this is that exactly sort of like the kind of game Apple plays.
Exactly.
Even if I pose like that, I look more like
somebody superglued his thumb to his chin.
I'm the guy in the basement who's putting his stuff together.
No, you need to use your right arm.
Look at him. His name is Paul Deneuve. But Yves Saint Laurent.
I have the feeling that this is going to be the differentiator. I mean, everybody's going to have a big bar of soap on their wrist, like the Sony iWatch, which is probably a pretty nice watch, the next one, the second one. But it's a big, squarish kind of
look like the
thing.
Casio calculator.
I got my Pebble here, which looks like the Casio calculator watch too.
Yeah.
I like it.
And if Apple comes out with something that's really looks like high-end, sleek, thin,
like
all that
Swatch.
stuff, which they are very likely to do, that's going to be the differentiator.
Say a swatch?
He didn't say that.
I hope they do. I hope they do it
from the record.
Can they do Swatch time? Swatch time didn't catch.
Yeah, whatever. That was internet
bring
time,
it back.
right?
Bring
That
back
was
the
a good
Swatch
time. I like that. It was completely indecipherable.
No, it made no sense at all. But bring it back.
But it was Swatch time. What is that? That is so stupid. I'm going to invent a new kind of time. But you know who could do that? Apple. We're going to make time decimal. It should have been decimal. Why is it not? How many fingers and toes? It should be decimal.
Apple often looks back in history for influences and inspiration, so I believe it might have a sundial on it.
I like it. It will. Well, hey, it's reliable unless it gets cloudy.
Depending on what time of the year it is.
I'm really disappointed that Google doesn't automatically tell me the time in Swatch time right now. It's not.
Why can't you? You can't Google Swatch time and find out?
Well, there's sites, but Google should do that.
No,
that should be a Google thing. That should be an April Fool's Day project.
But how about internet time? I think it's the same as Swatch time, isn't it? Is it not?
I don't know. It's where it's divided into beats instead of because seconds and minutes are outmoded.
Decimal.
Yes, it was decimal.
It was decimal. And that's what we need. So, professor at Boston University says, "Hey, I did that." This is the problem with patent wars. You start a patent war, suddenly you get sued. And now this guy is saying he is asking that Apple be banned from selling iPhones and iPads because he invented gallium nitride thin film semiconductors back in 1997.
What's crazy is that his patent expires next year.
Yeah, well, he's got to work fast.
What took him so long? These devices have been around for years.
People have been using gallium arsenide
he's been fishing
for a while.
Yeah. You better get going.
He's seeking an injunction banning the sale of a wide range of Apple products, but also asking for an accounting of their profits. BU's involved in this. They want Apple to hand over its earnings from the last few years.
Good luck.
Stand and deliver. Wow. But you know what? This is not a patent troll. I mean, this guy invented it. Doesn't he have the right to say, hey, it's mine?
It's more like patent performance art. It's just like, look how bad this could get.
Yeah.
But you start a war, and, you know, you can't control where the shooting's going to end up. And Samsung got an injunction against Apple, and where in Korea or somewhere?
Somewhere.
Can't follow it. It's too complicated for me. My mind is limited. We'll take a break, come back with more. We'll talk about that massive Android flaw next. But first, a word from Audible.com. Audiobooks. Somebody tweeted me. I made my wife listen to Twit. We drove cross country the whole time. Poor woman. And
made her listen.
I made her listen, and now as a result, she's an Audible subscriber.
She went to LegalZoom and filed a divorce.
She went to all our advertisers. LegalZoom filed a divorce.
First, she sold her iPhone, then
$99.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if they do divorces. Actually, that's an interesting question. Probably not. But I do know where you can get an Audible subscription. In fact, I know where you get 2 books for free, enough to get you cross country if you get the right books. Actually, if you got The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich, you could drive back and forth 3 or 4 times. You could probably drive all the way around the world. Are you excited about the Lone Ranger movie? Me neither. But there is a book that I guess the movie's based on, The Lone Ranger Rides by Franz Stryker. Difficult men behind the scenes of a creative revolution, from The Sopranos and The Wire to Mad Men and Breaking Bad. The evolution of TV writing.
Yep.
That would be great.
Wow. Yeah, that looks like a
Brett
good
Martin. Wow. If you like thrillers, well, there's everything from Dan Brown. His newest, Inferno, is out on Audible, or the new Neil Gaiman, which I'm told is as much a memoir as a novel. The Ocean at the End of the Lane. Andy read it and said it was great.
Read by the author?
And you know what? Neil Gaiman reads, I listen. He's got the most beautiful voice. Not many authors can read their own works, but Neil Gaiman is always the go-to guy if you've got a Neil Gaiman book. Now, here's the deal. You can get 2 books for free. You play them back on your computer, any portable device, any tablet. There actually is great Audible software for iOS, Android, and Windows Phone. Windows Metro, there's a lovely Audible app for. That lets you see your whole library, download any book from your library, listen at any time. I listen all the time. I have a Sonos, so I can listen to my audio from my Audible, and the entire house echoes with books. I am just such a fan. I want you to try it free. Go to audible.com and /twit2. Audible.com/twit and the number 2. You're going to sign up for the Platinum account. That's 2 books a month, but the first month is free. You pay nothing for the first 30 days. You get 2 credits, but that's in almost every case 2 books. There are some longer books that are 2 credits. If you pick a really, really long book, maybe you'll use both credits on it. But here's the beauty part. Cancel it anytime in the first 30 days. The book is yours to keep. You pay absolutely nothing. I don't think you will. It's kind of a little bet I have with Audible. I don't think many people cancel once they start listening to audiobooks from audible.com. Audible.com/twit2.
There's a benefit to audiobooks that I don't think you've ever mentioned, and I've discovered it recently.
What?
I'm reading Eric Schmidt's The New Digital Age, and it's the dullest book you can imagine. But I have to read it because I'm a professional. Don't try this at home. This is boring.
Even I cannot bring myself to read this.
I could never force my eyeballs to stay on those words, but I can listen to it.
And if you
fast,
if you need to go to bed, yeah, you're right, because Audible let you listen at double speed.
That's right. But you're right. 2 minutes and you're out.
Yeah, it's a 10-hour 48. Yeah, it's great. Great way to go to sleep. The new
Except you have dreams
digital
about
age,
Eric Schmidt, which
reshaping the future of people, nations, and
you don't want that.
Eric Schmidt.
With 5 billion more people set to join the virtual world, the boom in digital connectivity will bring gains in productivity, health, education,
surely he says
quality of life.
Interesting.
It's interesting topics, but it's just so dry and just...
Why did Eric write that book?
I don't know.
Because he felt compelled to?
He's playing it for history. I don't know.
Maybe he's playing it for history. You might be right. You might be right. Anyway, there's lots of good books. I'm not going to recommend that one, but if you are in the business and feel that you need to keep... there are a lot of books that I actually listen to because I have to, right? Silicon Valley tech, history books and stuff like that. Now, here's one that's not horrible. In the Plex by Stephen Levy. That is a great book.
Yep.
how Google thinks, works, and shapes our lives. Stephen got amazing access, and it reads, some of it's quite dramatic.
Yep.
So you could read that and then read the Eric Schmidt.
People should read the Professor and the Madman.
Oh, isn't that great? The story of the Oxford English Dictionary.
Yeah, and the guy in an asylum who was the most valued outside contributor to the dictionary, and they didn't even know he was in an asylum for like a decade.
That book cost me so much money.
Did you buy the OED after that?
I bought the OED after I listened to it. Simon Winchester writes great books. He's written a lot of very interesting history books, and this is one of them. He narrates it, actually, which is another guy, unusual, but authors sometimes are very good.
A momentary air of mutual embarrassment. A clock ticked loudly.
Ooh, nice English
There were muffled footsteps in the hall, a distant clank of keys.
Highly recommended.
Yeah.
It is not the story of the Gilligan's Island, as some people thought it might be.
No. Untold story.
Although that's a very good book.
And the Madman.
Yeah. 3 hours and you're done. Promise. 3 hour tour.
Yeah, not only did I buy the OED, but I didn't buy the one with the magnifying glass. I bought the full
big one?
20 volume.
Wow.
Dang.
It's nice to have. You don't really go and look at it that
As
much.
tech people, that's a great book, too, because you realize the steps that they had to go to because they didn't have a database in the 1800s. Yep.
So this guy who compiled it, the professor, had a little round shed, and it had thousands of slots, and every new word that they found, because they'd have all these readers, including this madman in the asylum, and if they found an interesting word, they'd write it on a little slip of paper, and they'd put it in a slot. And then that word came up again, they put another one in that slot, and they compiled the definitive dictionary, which is presumed to have every word in the English language in it. Every word. Unabridged, it's about this big.
Yeah. Yeah, and to compile them, they just had to, like, what word are we up to? And they'd go to the slot, and they'd take out all the paper and then sort through it.
No smoking in that room, I tell you.
A database now.
You gotta listen to this book, because it's a great story. And it made me crave the OED. I said, I gotta have this. I had I think there was a CD.
There's a CD-ROM, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not satisfying.
You can actually subscribe to it, and it's something like $300 a year. And I'm thinking if they lowered that by like an order of magnitude, they could have a pretty huge business.
Why isn't it online?
It is online. You can subscribe.
Oh, but you have to pay $300
you have to pay $300 a year every year.
Pay $20 a year,
yeah.
And they would have 1 million users.
Exactly.
Because it's what actually for a writer, and you're all writers.
Yeah.
I'm not a writer, but I pretend, it would you read you see a word like commodious. And Stephen Gibson was saying, wow, that's Stephen King. He's a smart guy. He used the word commodious in a sentence. and so you look it up. You see the first time it was used ever in English in literature.
The etymology is the best part.
Yeah, you see all the nuances of it. It is, for anybody who loves language, it's a wonderful, wonderful book.
But it's not $300 a year wonderful. Yeah. That is great. Great
I think
resource.
I spent well over $1,000 for the whole thing. But once. And now I own it.
Right.
And if people, it's a great way to meet chicks. You say, you want to see my... Doesn't work.
And I don't need the magnifying glass.
Look, every page.
Are you feeling...
Give me a letter, any letter.
Commodious today?
Sometimes I just like to bring girls over and read to them from it. It's wonderful.
Put them to sleep.
Put them right out. So there's this will wake you up. There's a massive flaw in Android discovered by a security research named Blue Box. They say that it allows any malicious app. You don't have to have access to the device. You just have to get somebody to download your app. You could take existing apps and modify them. Will allow any hacker to get full access to your phone, read anything on it, get any passwords, control any function, send texts, make phone calls, turn on the microphone, turn on the camera. Almost 900 million Android devices are vulnerable. 99% of all devices, according to Blue Box. Now, we haven't been able to vet this because they haven't released the hack. They say they will at DEF CON, or I'm sorry, at Black Hat, which is in late July, so you got a couple weeks.
This is a real problem for Android phones internationally because the vast majority of users don't use the Play Store, and
you're probably safe if you buy in the Play Store.
You
right?
probably are, because if they discover something that's using this, they'll pull the plug and they'll
sure
notify users or whatever, and it's probably the safest place to go. But there's something like 500 Android stores.
I was so
around the world.
surprised to read that.
Well, you know, you see these huge numbers and of how many Android phones are out there, and these aren't people in the U.S. and Europe for the most part. These are mostly like third world countries, China. And they're people who are not really playing ball with Google and Android. They don't give you Google stuff. They don't give you the Play Store. Vast majority of Android users have never heard of the Play Store.
Yeah.
You know, the company, the 2-bit no-name company that makes the phone creates their own Play Store because that's how they make the money. And, you know.
And they don't vet stuff.
They don't vet stuff. Yeah.
Furthermore, there's sideload capabilities. You have to check a box in your settings, but a lot of us do. Now, Google was notified about the bug in February, according to Blue Box. And Google then, quote, notified their device partners, and that's part of the problem. I imagine if you're on a Nexus phone that you've been fixed already, I would hope.
It's also possible that nobody has ever exploited this. This is only a potential security flaw. It's possible that no hacker or whatever has, or even the NSA has even exploited this flaw. And really, I don't know, you know, it would be a difficult thing to do to gain access to a large number of phones and go through them and do all this kind of stuff. So,
well, as a simple way to make money, you can send texts to there's places in the, you know, Trinidad or somewhere where you could send a text for $25, and you split the money with the you know, it's a toll text.
Yeah,
it's a quick way to make a lot of money.
Great idea. How do you do this?
Well, that's an old, you know, that's an old hack where you send somebody an instant message saying click this link.
Yep.
And it would send a text, and suddenly you got a bill on your phone, you know, a $25 charge on your phone bill. So the other problem in the Google universe, in the Android universe, is, you know, and this has to be updated by Samsung. The one has to be updated by HTC. They've got to make the modification. They've got to make the fix. They've got to push the fix out. Then they have to get the carriers to agree in most cases. The carriers may slow it down too. This fix may not get out for a long time.
This is yet another opportunity to ask the question: would it be better if Google took more control of Android? Right. And you know, part of me thinks, yeah, it might be a good thing if they just, you know, were just a little bit of apple juice in there somewhere, close it up a little bit, control it.
According to John Keister, that can't be his name, Keetsier. Writing for VentureBeat.
Keister is funnier.
Keister, it could be his name. It could be pronounced that way. I'm just saying. And if it were my name, I would probably not pronounce it that way. But said that Google gave a patch to carriers in March. They fixed it. They figured out how to fix it right away. But I don't know if we've been updated or not. I don't know which ones are updated.
In March?
They sent a patch to its partners at the beginning of March, according to
John. So did they roll that out for Nexus?
I would think so.
I should check my phone.
You might have gotten it months ago and not known, right? Google, according to VentureBeat, has added checks in the Play Store which will guard against apps that use this kind of attack. So Google Play should be safe. But I don't know who else is using it. We don't know what phones are safe.
I wonder if you use Lookout?
Yeah.
Wonder if they'll update it to kind of go through your apps.
Well, you'd think that it would be a simple thing to look for certain strings in this hack, right? But we've got to see the hack first. So I don't know if Lookout's been given that hack by Blue Box. I don't know. Who knows what? There's a lot of mysteries about all this. Google says no comment. If you are using Google Play as an application verification tool, I didn't know you could do this. You can go to your apps menu if you're using 4.2 or later, tap Google Settings, verify apps, or in Settings Security, verify apps.
That's a great tip.
I had no idea. I'm going to have to see if that's on here. So that's like Lookout. Lookout does the same thing. It scans each app as you download it. But apparently there's a built-in Google capability to do that. And in fact, it's using the Play Store and its verification technology.
It's actually one of the first apps I tell people.
Lookout. Yeah, I like Lookout a lot.
When they get Android.
Although, do we know if it works? I mean, do we know what it does?
I use it just so I can remotely kill my phone.
For that, and it's free for that feature, which is good.
Plus, it's like defragging used to be in the 90s. It just feels good.
It could be false security, but it's like a security blanket.
And verify apps. Block or warn before installing apps that might cause harm. So this is a Galaxy S4, and it's built in to the security
Every
settings.
app from now on will potentially cause harm.
But I also have above it checked allow installation of apps from sources other than the Play Store. But yeah, well, if you're going to check that, check the verify too. And I guess the good advice is to stick with
an iPhone.
Known good sources.
Kidding.
Get an iPhone.
I'm kidding.
Get an iPhone.
No, seriously.
Go back to a flip phone.
Or just stay in the Google Play Store.
That's right.
Just,
That's
right.
right.
If you're in the Play Store, you're all right.
Resist the temptation to sideload.
I sideload a lot.
How are you going to hack your phone?
I know.
That's how I root things.
And if-
I often wonder, I'm always installing ROMs from, it's a forum post on XDA. Boy,
I got to get it. I got to get it.
That's got to be safe. Android is pushing 70% global market. Global is the key word here. 70% global market share. That's why.
Yeah.
That's why they're scared.
Yep.
Yeah.
But again, who wants market share without revenues?
A lot of those are low-end phones, though, that aren't going to be updated, and they're the security holes of the future, because those are the ones those are like the zombie botnet PCs running XP.
That's right.
That never got patched. That's the real scary thing is those phones.
Because they will affect everybody else.
Because they'll never get those security updates.
Right. The thing that people need to understand about the global market share numbers is that the biggest thing that's happening in the world right now is that people who used to have feature phones are getting smartphones.
They're getting computers.
When my wife and I traveled around the world for like 10 months or something, it was shocking how many feature phones are out there. I mean, in significant European countries, some of them, a lot of people are just using feature phones. So that everybody's going to have a smartphone, within 5 years or something. So all this growth in smartphone markets, this is a lot of people who don't really even want a smartphone. That's just what they're selling. And so, you have to take it with a grain of salt.
You're also going to have people who've never really had a computer or access to a computer before, who now their window to the internet is through their phone, which is pretty cool, but how they use it remains to be seen. It may be, web browsing. Are there going to be lots of app downloads? Are they going to be buying things or just sort of doing the basics? We don't know exactly what those users look like.
There's a big movement afoot by Google and also Facebook and a few other companies to go make deals with carriers in places where people are paying for every byte of data. And the way that works is, in the case of Google just did a one in India, where if you use Gmail, Google Search, or Google Plus, you don't pay for the data, the minutes on that data. So that's favoring the usage in these countries to using these Google services. Why they're doing that, I'm not sure, but this is one of the big things you see in the third world and the second world, where if you want to use the internet, you're using these services, so that some services are free and some aren't, based on what deals were made.
If Google made enough money, they probably could subsidize these phones, right? I mean,
that's what I wrote a column recently, not to sound like Dvorak, but I wrote a column recently.
He owns that, by the trademark.
Yeah, I know. I'm gonna have to pay him royalties now. But I'm kind of thinking that we're getting to the point where smartphones are going to be free, as long as you and ad supported and so on. So we're getting to that point. I think it's a great thing, actually.
That's how you resolve the privacy issue. Would you like a free phone? Just agree to it, and if people don't want the free phone, they don't have to take it.
That's right. If you want to pay for it,
But what's sad is it means that only people with means will be able to afford privacy. Privacy will be a luxury item, and that's kind of sad.
I'm a little concerned about that. I mean, smartphones, it depends on how we're doing it, but a lot of these smartphones that are going to people who use feature phones before, it really is are they going to use those features, or is it just kind of a scam that the carriers, especially in the U.S., I see this a lot, they're pushing these phones on people who might not use many of the features. Oh, it's got the internet on it, and it's free. But what they're really doing is they're getting them to buy that expensive data plan, and and that's very profitable for them. But you may end up with a lot of people who are paying for a data plan that they don't really use, which is it's wasteful. So that's my question. If all you're doing is some email and the occasional web browser, do you want to spend that amount of money on a data plan? On that phone.
So Sony's going to be coming out with this product that's essentially a Bluetooth dongle that's designed to work with their phablets. So the idea is you have this giant Sony phablet.
You're just making up words now,
I am now. I've heard you use the word phablet many times.
Is it a phablet dongle?
At least I haven't ever bought a phablet.
Anybody just tuning in, yes, those are real words.
Yes, and we apologize. But what it is it's a dongle that is, you can plug in earphones and stuff, but you can also answer it like a phone. It's basically a phone that doesn't do anything, and that's the benefit. Doesn't have much of a screen.
Wait a minute.
All right.
Okay. Why? What?
So imagine you. So it's technically a wearable because it clips onto your clothing.
Yeah.
So imagine a Bluetooth dongle that goes in your ear that we're all familiar with.
Yeah.
It's like that, except for it's like a stick of gum. It's a tiny little black thing. We could probably bring it up on screen. There's some nice pictures online. It's called the Sony Bluetooth. It's a terrible Sony.
It's a Sony product
name. Yes, yeah, it's awful.
They didn't want to use dongle.
But they announced it recently, and they're shipping it
why.
next month. And it's actually kind of cool, but it clips under your shirt, and then when the phone rings, you don't, instead of bringing out your 15-inch phone, you just unclip the thing and you answer it, and you're back in.
Oh.
You know, it's basically, if you ever saw Zoolander, it's basically that phone.
It's just a phone.
Yeah.
So does it work? It works in conjunction with whatever your
Exactly.
We did a story last week. There it is. Is that it?
That is it. Yeah, that's it. So
that's not a bad idea if you've got a phablet or you've got a tablet with a cellular connection.
I kind of want that.
I want it too. And here's
what does it do?
I don't know.
It
makes phone calls.
I just want it.
Well, this is the irony, though. This is the world we're entering into.
It's got buttons. It's got a headphone.
People who are poor are going to get a free smartphone that does everything, and you have to be wealthy to have a phone that does nothing. Like that's the
ultimate irony of life.
Exact. Thank you, Roger. That's exactly.
So, do any of you actually make regular phone calls? Because pretty much 95%.
I don't make any calls.
I am.
People call me though.
No, nobody calls me.
Despite my efforts.
No. The only people that call me are the phone company.
My mom
calls.
Me
on
my
a new
mom,
phone deal.
yeah.
Mom calls.
Well, my dad calls.
But I got her on Skype. I'm getting her on the text messaging, that kind of thing. I want that. Can I have that? What is it? The SBH?
Yeah, it's
52.
Awful.
Not to parrot what the CEO of BlackBerry said, but when he said, "Oh, tablets." Yeah, they're still around so far. Sorry, Canada. See, we say nice things about Canada. We say bad things about Canada.
Yeah.
But they said, what he said was right, that sooner or later we're going to be carrying around something on our body somewhere.
Yep.
NSA knows where. That has the internet connection.
Right.
And all the other devices are just going to attach to that internet connection. Maybe that's our phone. Maybe that's some other device.
Exactly.
Because having a bunch of different devices that are kind of on the internet and don't talk to each other is ridiculous. And if you want a little thing that you stick in your ear to talk to somebody
or
on the phone,
you can just buy this smartwatch.
Smartwatch.
I want that too.
Sony makes that too. They already make that.
No,
it's
no.
$89.
There's a Sony accessory on every part of your body.
There's a new one coming out next month that is actually more expensive.
I hate it when that happens.
Yeah.
You should build a smart belt. Because you can build it.
You could put more in it.
You can put more
it's
in
like
it.
Batman.
You could put the batteries.
It's a utility belt.
And then the display could be glasses that you put on and connects wirelessly.
Okay, I'm going to share you my $1 million idea. Just among our.
Okay, don't tell anybody.
Don't tell anybody.
You're all NDA'd and embargoed.
Yeah, because the Google. Because nobody's watching. It's just us.
Just us.
Because Google Glass, it looks kind of funny. It's hanging in front of your face. Yeah. Smart hats. You right?
Look, you
do
got
this.
A slow clap.
On the bottom of the brim, it'll have lots of information, but from the outside, and there'll be a baseball
you
hat.
Could just be looking
there'll be a
brand.
fedora. There'll be a and it's
so
like
many
it's like
traffic
you're rolling
accidents.
your eyes.
There's so many traffic accidents.
Smart hats. It's going to happen.
Are you drunk? Or
I'm going to be the Doug.
I'm
going to be the Doug Engelbart of smart hats.
Peacock.
This is what I'm saying.
I like it.
Smart hats.
Abe Lincoln used to store his speeches in his hat. Now he could just look up.
He could, his teleprompter would be in his hat.
You could put an Apple, one of those new Apple computers in one of those hats.
I think a smart hat is a good idea. Everything press it says
talk into the smart
digital.
Hat. Smart
There's
hats.
a lot of weight on your head.
I want that.
All right. Leo,
are you sure you want that?
You'll be the beta tester for the smart hat.
All that wireless energy going straight through your skull.
Those are hats. Those are hats, but they're not
They're
smart.
not smart. It looks like if you wore this hat, you would probably say, well, it must be a smart hat. Otherwise, why would he be wearing that?
It's a very small brim.
No, it's like a train.
No, you want a small brim because you don't want, if it's like that, it's like a 52-inch TV 4 feet away.
It's the future, man.
What I want is the anti-NSA Google Glass that has the nose and the mustache to disguise you, so that they don't know who you are.
Have you seen those?
Foil in the cap.
Have you seen those glasses that are designed to basically shoot out a infrared burst of light?
Yeah. We were going to make one for Colleen. So if you can if you don't want to have anybody take your picture, you can have, and she was going to have a collar that she would wear when she walked into the studio that would emit infrared. It's very, very bright, and cameras could see it, but humans can't. So she would look like a glowing head her head would look like a glowing
like an angel.
Like an angel. It would just be a little IR collar. I think it's a great idea.
collar, a smart collar.
Oh, man.
And then the smart leash.
How long before, though? I mean, people are concerned. Everybody's got a camera, right? I think, I worry. If I were a teenager today, nothing. You can't do anything.
Teenagers don't worry.
You can't get away with anything.
That's the problem with teenagers.
They'll try, but they won't get away with it. Yeah. I feel like this show is going to be prior art in some horrible patent dispute in 10 years. Where it's like, see,
he invented it.
Smart hat, smart collar. It was all there.
Collar. Hey, don't forget the smart belt.
Smart belt.
Can you imagine the amount of lithium cells you could put on that thing?
So this Don Matrick story is a great story. He was Microsoft's. Everybody, look, your phones all went off. People are texting you? Okay. He was the Microsoft Interactive Entertainment president. He was the guy who, when Xbox One came out, said the always-on internet wasn't a problem unless you were in a submarine.
Right.
And then was, I believe, I think he got Scott forestalled.
Yep.
Where this is what happened to Scott, right?
Yep.
At Apple, they went to Scott and said, you need to write an apology letter for Maps. And Scott said, no. I don't think so. And they said, okay, goodbye. Tim Cook said, I'll write it, but you're gone. I think the same thing happened to Don Matrick. When Microsoft did the 180 on the Xbox, they said, Don, would you like to write that letter? And he said, I would, but he's still gone. He is now, I don't know if this is the Booby Prize. He is now the CEO of Zynga. That's not good.
That's a very fitting end.
Although
that's not good.
Yeah.
They probably gave him a lot of money. So Mark Pincus, who ran Zynga, finally realized, I guess I'm not the right guy to run this company. Zynga's been really struggling. Zynga was on top with Farmville and all those Facebook games. They had poker, right? It was the big winner for them, was some sort of head-to-head poker. They bought Words with Friends and all the Words with or Friends with Friends thing. But what happened was it turned out being a Facebook game company is not a great place to be. They started to move mobile. They went out and bought OMG Pop for an insane amount of money.
Then shut it down.
Also bought our previous building.
And they are in the, did they buy it or are they leasing it?
Did they shut that down too?
Tech TV building.
Yeah, I thought they bought it. I thought they were on a lease and they eventually bought it.
They took it over, I think. Yeah.
But Microsoft isn't a great place to be right now either. I mean,
they're about to undergo a reorg probably, and I guess that
get rid of Ballmer.
This hat really does not help my credibility. I look like I'm a Jamaican taxi cab driver. Yeah, man, what you want to go? I'll take you anywhere on the island.
I don't want to go.
You got any ganja, man? All right, taking the hat off. It's smart-ish.
You made a smart move.
Smart-ish.
Take off the hat.
I forgot where I was. Oh, Microsoft's about to reorg,
right. But I really think they've got to get rid of Ballmer. This guy is just being Bill Gates' college friend is not a good reason to run a company like that, and it's just been failure after failure. I think they've squandered so many opportunities. It's
kind of tragic. Yeah. Now Steven Sinofsky, the man who inflicted Windows 8 on the world, has agreed to not compete with Microsoft through the end of this year.
Yeah, that's not
6 months.
Yeah,
he gets $14 million for it.
I hope he enjoys his gardening.
Who's running this company? Steven, please do not compete with us. What will it take to get you to not compete with us? Well, I won't compete with you until December if you give me $14 million. And they agreed to it. Yeah.
Does this story, I wonder about the sequence here, if this was more like they're reporting on what his deal is, and that includes a non-compete.
Because they're a public company, they had to file this with the SEC. They are giving him 418,000 shares of Microsoft stock. It's the retirement agreement. Also reveals Microsoft is enforcing the non-compete agreement.
There's the non-compete, but there's also the no disparage law, whatever it's called. There's don't trash talk us law.
Well, we knew that was the case because he's been very
that's pretty
quiet.
Standard. But the short period of time I think is pretty unstandard. Usually like 3 years or something.
Yeah, December 31st, 2013. He will not be able to accept deployment at certain competitors or encourage customers of Microsoft to choose a competing offering.
Yeah.
So he's no ads.
So January 1st, he's going to be out there hawking something else that directly competes.
And the no disparage clause is also in effect.
Yeah, you're right, Mike. This is
That's
Microsoft.
Very short.
You look at Microsoft's track record here, and it's easy for me as a guy who's always been following Apple to bash Microsoft, but Microsoft's done some really interesting things over the last few years. And I feel like the more I look at it, the more it's like opportunities, really good opportunities, kind of wasted.
Absolutely. I think the biggest one is that they had the Microsoft Surface table before it was a tiny little thing. Yeah. First of all, switching the name over to the laptop thing was a big
I don't know. I think
error.
that was a good name.
Well, the Surface Table and the future of the desktop is going to be these big screen giant things, I think, and Surface is a great name for that. Right. But branding aside, they had the Surface Table, and then they bought the other leader in that space, which was
Perceptive Pixel. Perceptive Pixel.
Yeah, and so now they've got both of those, and I've been trying to love them. Like I've been trying
to. That's the 85-inch touchscreen.
I've been trying to write about what great things they must be working on, and I want to talk to them, and I contact Microsoft, and they get back to me and say we don't want to talk about it. I mean, it's insane.
You know, if you listen to Windows Weekly for 5 minutes, you will hear Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley, who are very much pro Microsoft products people. That's why they do what they do. Just bemoan the very poor communication that I don't know if you've run into this now at PC World, but Microsoft's PR is terrible.
It's awful.
It's hard.
The submarine.
It's not PR. That's PR. PR is not the problem. The companies that they hire to do PR and the internal PRs, they're actually good people. The problem is that there's a fatal sort of a silification of that company, where everybody's afraid to say something about another company because they'll be held to pay, and everybody's constrained. It's the old
and each division has competing interests. So you can't do too well in one area because the Office division is going to say, "Hey, wait a minute."
Well, and I think you hit the nail on the head there, which is there's something in Microsoft politics about protecting Windows and protecting Office, and those are cash cows. I totally get it, and yet what they're doing is interesting ideas kind of get squashed or they get bastardized. If the Windows Phone interface had gone on the tablet tablets directly instead of being this weird half-baked Windows RT tablet strategy that they did, but it's really Windows 8 underneath. I mean, but it's just got the smell of good ideas that were then kind of screwed up by somebody protecting their turf.
They're the Xerox PARC of our age. Their research labs are second to none. They produce some of the most breathtaking technologies, and they never see the light of day.
And the stuff that we do see that's interesting tends to be in the gaming space where Windows as a brand is not really relevant, and so it can't screw up. Office and Windows can't screw it up.
You've seen Manu's. I have this hanging on my wall. He sent me a autographed personal edition of the org chart for different companies. Amazon, which is pretty traditional. Google, which is very kind of flat. There's 3 people. Facebook, which is a network. But then the Microsoft one is the one that you should look at because there's different divisions all pointing guns at one another.
Is there one for Sony? Because a lot of this sounds a lot like the issues with Sony. Just having that silo.
Well, what Sony does is that there's so much independence between groups is that multiple groups will come up with competing products. And then they don't talk to each other. They don't share their,
You can buy that, by the way, from bonkersworld.net if you want that cartoon. It's a great cartoon, and I have it on my wall. And it always informs my reporting on these companies because I think it's fairly accurate.
I mean, is having getting to a certain size inevitable where your structure starts beginning to look more like a
It is with weak leadership.
That will be what's interesting about this reorg. Yeah. Unfortunately, they're not going to do what they need to do, which I agree is get rid of Ballmer or split into different companies, literally.
Right.
They're
not going to do that either.
Chairs.
If you look at the difference between what Apple did with introducing iOS and the iPad compared with what Microsoft did, where it came in and said, well, we're going to kind of give you the future, which is touch screens, plus we'll give you the past. And then, well, okay, we won't give you so much future. We'll bring back the button, blah, blah, blah. It's like this wishy. They don't have any vision at all. Apple came out and said, here's the tablet. This is how it is. Our way, the highway. This is the future. Clear leadership there.
Right. That moment at the D conference, actually, where they unveiled it for the first time, where Sanofsky was on stage unveiling it, it was so exciting to see that tablet interface and think, wow, Microsoft is really going to game on, right? That was my response.
Exactly.
And then at the back end of it, he was like, oh, but if we flip the switch, you're in the Windows desktop and you're going to run Office with them, and you can attach a mouse. I'm like, oh, so close. And then like cold feet, just backing away from it.
I think there's something. What you guys were addressing was there's something like in Microsoft genes where you need to keep the legacy user base on the entire time. So whatever you do, you have to bring them along. And I think that's what you see is you see kind of this.
I have to say, I understand that, though. I mean, they sell primarily to the business market, unlike Apple and other companies.
But Apple's the company that's taking over the business market because they have such a clear vision. You know, what's happening in consumer electronics is that in enterprises, the people bring it.
I think there's still a lot of Windows machines.
Sure. But
the vast majority of businesses are still running Windows, probably XP.
Did they think so little of their innovations, though, that they figure unless they call it Windows and make it sort of like very much like an old PC is, people aren't going to want it? Because that's what it sounds like to me, and it's too bad because I think a fully fledged sort of Windows phone-based tablet that wasn't this weird combination of Windows 8
I don't
and
know
Windows
if there's
Phone
anything they could have done.
better.
I think this is the innovator's dilemma. I do not think there's anything they could have done. They're trapped. You either say, okay, we're going to give business what it wants, which is Windows 7, continually, in which case people like us will say, well, they've lost their ability to innovate. They're just going to kind of coast into the distance like IBM. Or you do what Jason says and you go full bore into the new Windows 8 touch world and you say goodbye to the desktop.
Well, you don't say goodbye to the desktop, but tablet, smartphone, you can see what they did with the Xbox. I feel like they could have...
Well, where does the desktop go in that world?
Well, so I think part of it is that you can't
it sits there in businesses for a while.
You continue to sell Windows 7 and you create a new brand that is the tablet brand.
Well, I mean, they did it with Xbox. I mean, they created an entirely brand new platform that, I mean, until recently had a really good mind share among the audience, and it was something that wasn't. I mean, they had the NT kernel as the basis for it, but it wasn't like you hit the start button, you go through it, and you work it like a Windows machine.
I think it's very tough. I think it's very tough.
Perceptive pixel devices are ideal for enterprises. They're brilliant for enterprises. You want, if you're an executive, you want one of these big screens in your office.
Yeah.
You give presentations on it. It's like a TV. You lay it flat. You plan things. You like it. It's like, but there's no vision.
They're also how much?
They're expensive. Well, that's another reason why they're good for enterprises. I mean, how much does Microsoft charge for their software into enterprises? Right. But this is something that they make that's hardware. This should be the new model. They should be more Apple-like and sell hardware and software like they're doing on the low end. And it's like, they're just, there's nothing there.
I also think it's just a broader kind of industry-wide dilemma because you are shifting from
that's what's
a desktop, a computer format,
that's exactly what's happened.
People have been using for the past 20 years, and you're trying to,
the ground has come out from under them.
And everyone's literally scrambling, finding out what the next kind of computer, model will be.
And that's when I bash Microsoft about this. It's, Leo, you said what happens to the old PCs, but it's like that's what I mean when I say, does Microsoft think so little of their products that they have to yoke everything to Windows? Because if they think that their tablet technology and their phone technology is so great, they should be pushing that as far as they can and not worry. Windows will take care of itself. It'll be around for a while. Eventually, it'll go away. I just don't think they believe it.
I think PCs are in
decline. They're going in the opposite direction. With 8.1, they're saying, "Oh, we're sorry, we took out the desktop. We'll let you boot to the desktop. You want a start button? Well, we'll do something like that."
And that's fine, except then they're committing to be kind of a legacy business that's just going to kind of fade away. If that's
I think that was the challenge.
What they're going to do.
I think that was. I think it's. I think you're right that Steve Ballmer is not the leader, but I don't know who would be, and I think there is a huge innovator's dilemma. You're so successful. It's very difficult then to go to your next stage without cannibalizing your existing business. I don't know what you do. I think that will be I mean, if I were teaching business, that'd be case study number one. What do you do? Here you are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's why it's a dilemma, right?
It's a dilemma.
This is a real dilemma.
This is why founders are such great leaders. This is what you see.
And why they don't continue. When a Steve Jobs leaves or dies, then what?
But look at the difference between the Larry Page version of Google versus the Eric Schmidt version of Google. Larry Page is just laying waste to, the boldest thing is to destroy Google Reader.
Right.
That was a bold move that Eric Schmidt would never have been able to do. But this is part of the sort of house cleaning thing that Larry's doing because he's a founder, because he's this person who can make those kind of hard decisions. So it's very difficult. Maybe Bill Gates should come back.
I've often thought that would be a good move. I don't know. I think Bill doesn't want to. I think he's very happy, doing what he's doing. And, I think we're very lucky he is doing what he's doing because he's making a big difference.
Problem is we see all these names of people who seem like they might step up and be that new leader at Microsoft, and they're all getting pushed out.
They're leaving.
Look, Microsoft should go down kicking and screaming. I agree. Rage against the dying of the light.
Viking death.
Yeah. But let's face it. in business in general and technology in particular, it's very difficult to continue on. There's a natural life cycle. IBM,
and they're making money, right? So you want to bleed that money out. The investors want to bleed that money out as long as possible.
I think it's an incredible challenge.
Well,
but it takes some leadership, and maybe Ballmer needed to create a skunk works or do something. I don't know.
Well, even IBM had to reinvent and go back to doing what they do best, which is selling large computer mainframes. Or
they don't sell anything now. They're a services company. They're a consultancy.
So
that's a different company.
Well, didn't they go back after what the late 80s?
They sold off all their hardware.
Yeah.
Well, that's how you succeed. You become a different company. Apple became a different company after Jobs came back. Google is becoming a different company. In some respects, the opposite company that they used to be.
Maybe IBM's a bad example because they really did, in a way, make that.
And they're successful.
Yeah.
It was a successful transition and a radical one. HP may very well become a very different company. So I think that's exactly what I'm saying they need. They need to just get over this silification. They need to say, here's a clear vision of the future, and let's drive it. Let's essentially do what Apple does and force it down everybody's throats until people get it and realize that this is really, the most breathtaking thing that Apple ever did was they introduced a phone without a keyboard.
Right.
And not only did they not build a physical keyboard to go with it, they banned other companies from making a physical keyboard. They said, we're going to give you 2 years where there is no physical keyboard that you can use with this phone.
In. They're all in.
And they trained us all to use the on-screen keyboard, and they never looked back. That's the kind of...
It could have backfired.
It could have, and it could have...
Takes guts.
Yeah, it may backfire more for the Microsofts of the world than it would for the Apple.
Lose, really.
But that's what it takes. You have to really believe in the future that you're giving people and just give it to them and take your knocks and move forward. Because otherwise, they're just going to be they're just quickly becoming an irrelevant dinosaur.
Microsoft shut stuff down. They just shut down Web TV.
Yeah.
They know how to cut the cord on a product that's
Were they still selling that?
Yes.
Jesus.
If you have a Web TV, which they rebranded, they bought it from Steve Perlman in '97. They rebranded it MSN TV. $425 million they gave Steve. Then, of course, remember, he went on. First, he retired to his house in Tahoe. Remember this? And then he created Moxie because he was trying to figure out a way to get all his television in all the rooms of his mansion. And then Moxie got sued out of existence pretty much. I think they got sold to somebody. And then what did Steve do next? Does anybody know?
I don't know.
Something pretty big, but I've forgotten what it is.
If only there was a search engine.
No, Steve Perlman. What is he doing?
Moxie was really looked good, but they decided to they were like TiVo, but they wanted to make deals with cable companies instead of selling to consumers.
On Live.
Yeah,
On
but
Live,
that just went.
That was another winner.
It's fun. I actually like that service.
I think On Live was great, but you know what? There was a kind of fundamental flaw that a good business plan might have discovered, which is in order to provide servers to all of potential customers, they had to buy them now. And nobody used it. They had 1,500 people online at a time, but they could have had capacity for millions, and they were paying for that, and then put them out of business. Nowadays, you could probably do it by spinning up instances on, Amazon Web Services.
Well, Sony's going to try the same thing.
So, Sony's going to do it with Gaikai, right? Anyway, Web TV, if you've got one,
pour one
you
out.
have till September 30th, and then they're going to shut down the service. I actually had a caller on the radio show today. Herpa. She called me and she said, I have a Web TV. What am I going to do?
Buy a laptop.
No, I told her buy an iPad. And I think that is the modern Web TV. Don't you think?
Sure, yeah. I was going to say just buy a TV, and it's probably got the web in it too.
There's enough web in the TV.
Sure,
you don't need a Web TV.
Too.
Yeah. Well, and I said if you want to put it on your big screen TV, which she probably means her Sony 32-inch Trinitron, but if you had an HD TV, you could buy an Apple TV and put it on the big screen, and you'd sit back just like you were doing your Web TV.
And if it's an SD TV, the iPad's got more pixels.
And then I said,
closer.
how much were you paying Web TV? Because it's a dial-up internet.
Oh my God.
$20 a month for the last 20 years. She's been paying.
Wow.
And I said, well, good news. $20 a month will get you 2 or 3 gigabytes on an iPad.
Yeah.
Right? At 4G speeds, not dial-up.
Yeah.
The world has changed, and I guess it was probably
There's
right.
somebody out there who uses Google Reader and Web TV who's having a real bad month.
Yep.
One guy. All right, we're going to take a break. We're brought to you today. By the way, great to have you, Mike Elgin. Very, very good team today. Mike Elgin, Jason Snell, Roger Chang. Smart people. It's nice to have smart people around here. Get that Dvorak out of here. He's driving. Just kidding. Actually, I asked because I wanted to have this Cuban cigars. But since he's not here, I didn't bring them. We're brought to you today by our friends at Citrix, C-I-T-R-I-X. You know them, of course, if you're in business as the kings of remote access. Ed Yakabuchi, who just passed away last week, a great guy who really created Citrix in 1989 because he understood better than anyone how Windows worked. He'd written much of the kernel for NT when he was at IBM. Citrix has a lot of great solutions we've talked about before to make it easier to get your job done. Go to Meeting, so you can have your online meetings. Go to My PC. I don't talk enough about this one, and it's one I use probably more than any other Citrix tool. It's called ShareFile, and it lets me share the audio I do the radio shows with. Anytime you're in business, you want to share files. The temptation is to attach it to an email, but nowadays these files are way too big. They'll bounce back, and of course, email, as we know now, is far from secure. It's if you're in, for instance, the medical industry and you want to medical business and you want to share patient records, you can't do it via email. That's illegal. HIPAA won't let you. Well, ShareFile, good news, is HIPAA compliant with regulations in many industries. It allows you to share files securely, to keep control of the file. When I send them to radio stations, I can say this can be downloaded by whom, how often, how many times, for how long. You don't get bounce backs. You complete access control. You even can store these files in the cloud. They have a synchronization program, which means all my ShareFile folders are automatically stored in the cloud and on other computers, and that way I can use my ShareFile app on my smartphone or my mobile laptop, my tablet, and share files even if I don't have them on the tablet. I want you to try it free for 30 days. ShareFile.com. There's a special link here. Don't click the green try it free button at the middle of the page. Go to the top. See that little teeny-weeny green microphone? They're hiding it. It says radio listeners. Click here. I know we're podcast. That's all right. That's close enough. Enter the offer code TWIT, and you'll get 30 days free. Do choose your industry so they can customize it. Dozens of different industries, everything from accounting, marketing, legal, video, software, retail, publishing, and of course, medicine. Sharefile.com. Use the offer code TWIT to get 30 days free at sharefile.com, but click that link at the top of the page, if you will. That's how I send audio to the radio stations. And it works really, really well. I was using other services, didn't work so well. Do you see those ads, the Google Bing challenge? We came to Seattle or wherever. We came to Mountain View, home of Google, to see if they like Bing or Google better. They must edit the hell out of those ads. Right?
I hate those.
I mean, come on. Does that convince anybody?
And when they found out that they did like Google better, they just had to put the ad on in shame. No.
No.
Of course not.
They edited it right out. Best Buy is going to be selling the Pebble beginning this weekend. Woo. So you still like it?
I still like it. As an iPhone user, the problem is that there's a bug in iOS 6 that makes it not push notify everything that it should. But it's getting better. It's good hardware, but they decided to prioritize the hardware over the software, and the software's still not there. But I'm still wearing it because, bottom line, I paid more for a worse watch than this just as a watch, and then it also shows me my text messages.
What desktop do you use? It looks like a license plate.
It's like a Domo. It's actually,
it's a Domo. Yeah, it's got a mouth.
He bites the time when the time
Does
changes.
He?
It's pretty cute.
This is their window to sell retail because when the giant companies come flooding in, it's hang on to that watch.
$149.95.
It's going to be a collector's item.
I used to have one. Remember
Number one reason I bought it was to live with it for a while and think about what a smartwatch might do.
Exactly.
It's sort of like cost of doing the business that we're in.
Exactly.
It is fun though. I'm a believer because everybody always said. You can just take your phone out of your pocket. You don't need a watch. It's like I'm really lazy. I would much rather do this. And now I can do this for text messages too.
I hate that argument too. Not your argument, but the argument that people
just
say that is
your phone out of your pocket.
Because it's first of all, everybody understands the value of a bigger screen on your phone, right? This is more screen real estate. Second of all, it's an additional filter. So the good smartwatches are going to give you notifications, limited ones, going to tell you who's calling and stuff, and it's not everything on your phone. It's just some of the things.
Right.
And
I get a text, I can look at it and see if I need to respond. And if I don't, I literally, press one button and I move on and I talk to keep talking to who I'm talking to, and I don't break it by getting on my phone and going, oh, yeah, and putting it away.
I noticed, though, you replaced the crappy plastic band with a nice leather one.
Oh, the vinyl band it comes with is awful, but it uses standard watch band. So, yeah.
Okay.
I actually, at Apple's developer conference, there were a bunch of people with Pebbles, and I think I saw about 10 Pebbles, and 9 of them had replaced the band with a leather band.
I got it for the same reason as you did. I just call it your prior art watch.
Sure.
Yeah.
Apple actually has a patent that puts little batteries in the band. So if they use that patent, then we're going to see the band be unreplaceable in the iWatch and have batteries in it. Yes. So curved glass and batteries in the band. Ask for it by name.
I'm so skeptical. I almost don't even think they're going to do it.
They might not.
Do it. I think they'll do it.
Everybody seems so convinced they're going to do it. I just don't buy it. I don't understand why anybody would want it.
I think they'll do it, but there'll be a spin. Like with the iPad, there'll be a little bit of a spin that nobody's necessarily expecting. Like maybe it's more of a fuel band than it is a watch.
Exactly. I did buy a fuel band and a Fitbit and
right. Maybe it's more
band.
Fitness and activity related than it is.
You want to? Dvorak isn't here, so I'll be the one to bring up the conspiracy theory type things. Foxconn,
you're wearing the tinfoil hat.
Thank you. Foxconn showed at an investor meeting a Fitbit-like watch. Foxconn. You guys have been around. Do you ever remember Foxconn coming out with prototype devices?
No.
Unassociated with
They don't sell
clients?
anything directly at all.
So I'm wondering if that's the Apple iWatch.
Well, why would they show it?
Because who knows? Maybe they want to deflect the rumors because this thing is going to be floating around.
I think
and
Foxconn thinks we should make something.
But the thing is that it's very Fitbit-like, and Tim Cook is a big fan of the Fitbit.
He wears
one.
Fitbit,
He's on the board. He's there's something there where that could indicate a direction for the iWatch. It also, here's the most interesting thing about the Foxconn thing. It has a fingerprint reader. Now, I wrote a column.
I love that column, and I wish Apple would put the fingerprint reader in the iPhone.
I was thinking they would put it in the iPhone. The iPhone becomes your identification device, the mother of all identification devices, not just a thing to secure the phone, but a thing that enable you to do purchases and stuff. But what if they did it in a watch or both? Like a watch would be a great place for an identification thing. It's just, this
gets stolen.
Well, I mean, you bolt it on your wrist. You graft it onto the phone.
It can get stolen, but it isn't without your fingerprint. It's useless.
They cut your finger off and take the whole hand off.
Fingerprints can't be duplicated.
No, they can't. No, because no. Modern good fingerprint, not the cheap, crappy ones. The good fingerprint readers know if it's a live finger. They can't be fooled by Play-Doh.
Anyway, I think it's very suspicious that Foxconn is shopping around its own device.
It can tell. There's blood pulsing through that. You'd have to build an entire pulsing hand blood flow
what if
finger.
What if it was just like a bandage you put on your own thumb?
Oh man, imagine what a great ID system the Smart Hat would have.
The Smart Hat, it's got your head in it.
But if somebody took your hat, that would be bad.
But it's got your head. You'd have to have your head.
Aren't people's head shapes as unique as
their
a fingerprint?
Exactly.
Oh man,
see if this hat fits
I'm putting mine back on. That's how good it is. I want to thank Mike Elgin for being here. Computer World's Mike Elgin on Google Plus. Must read. You're frankly keeping my Google Plus feed alive, stocked with goodness.
You're welcome, and thank you for having me.
Thank you for doing that. I really appreciate it. Want to thank Mr. Jason Snell for coming up the road of peace on a Sunday. I know you have better things to do. We're glad you're here.
What could be better than
Nothing
this?
could be better.
Nothing.
You want my smart hat?
I'm going to wait for V2.
Huh? Goodbye, Roger.
Are you kicking me off right now?
Yeah, I know what's coming up next. He's like my floor director. He says, "Say goodbye to Roger." Goodbye, Roger.
Bye, Leo. Thanks
Roger
for having
Chang
me on.
from Techzilla fame. Always great to have you. Let's find out what's coming up because I think we have a jam-packed week on the week ahead. Tom Merritt.
Hey, Leo, here's a few things we'll be keeping an eye on in the week ahead of Tech News today. Of course, today, the Samsung Galaxy Tab 3 coming to the U.S.
Didn't even know that.
The Pebble smartwatch arriving in Best Buy. And the Microsoft Worldwide Partner Conference kicks off, and that'll run for most of the week. Tuesday, July 9th, Dropbox holds its first DBX Developer Conference. Wednesday, July 10th, T-Mobile hosting an event in New York City with supposedly bold moves. And Thursday, July 11th, the Nokia Zoom Reinvented event in New York City. 41,000 million million reasons, whatever. It's the 41-megapixel camera. And Netflix original series Orange is the New Black debuts Thursday, July 11th. That's a look at the week ahead. Back to you, Leo.
That's not an original name, but it's an original series, so that's close enough. And we should mention that if you missed anything this week on Twit, you probably missed quite a few. Let's just take a look at some of the great stuff that happened this week.
Previously on Twit, the social hour.
Who is viewing your LinkedIn profile? Although, if I view Amber's LinkedIn profile, I don't necessarily want her to know that because maybe I was just getting a little intel on where she's worked in the past.
Before you buy.
Would I buy this with my own money for $199? No, this is a don't buy. Do not spend $200.
Not even $200.
Not for this device.
Mac Break Weekly.
I think anyone who's observed Apple for a long time saw this coming. And Apple is clearly saying once again that if you wanted to put this as one of 3 million units in a crate, we don't necessarily want that business.
GizWiz.
It's the gas. Listen, here comes Dick's solo is coming up here. This is amazing. When you hear this, you can really tell it's Dick.
And cast your love from the people you trust. This is Twit, folks.
That's quality programming. That's actually the Porky Pig, by the way, at the end there. He came into the studio. No, I'm not. It's a human. I'm not saying it's a pig. It's a human, but it's a guy. It's the guy who does the voice.
It's the current guy who does the voice.
And Bacon is making a comeback.
There have only been two. After Mel Blanc, this guy took over, and that's it. Yeah. He's the voice of, Mel's been gone for a while.
I know. That's why I thought you were saying like you had a seance or something.
I didn't. It wasn't Mel. It was Mel's successor.
Right.
Porky Pig
2.0.
2.0. Thanks for joining us. And we'll see you next time. We do Twit every Sunday afternoon, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. I don't know what UTC, like 2300 UTC on twit.tv. Watch live if you can, on-demand downloads of audio and video, always available after the fact at Twit and wherever you get your podcasts from. So please subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. And we'll see you next time. Another Twit is in the can. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.